welcome back to another Nextlander podcast. Here we are. Alex Navarro.
They haven't gotten rid of me yet.
They're trying to. Brad Shoemaker.
Yeah. Who's they?
Everyone.
Aren't we the they now?
Are we the they?
Like there is no they above us to get rid of us.
No, I think you mean the shadow government.
Aha.
Yes, the shadow forces that are constantly conspiring against me. That's who I'm referring to.
Yes.
I'm talking about the Yellow Turban Rebellion.
Oh, yeah.
They're after me.
It's been, 25 years? They are.
Yeah. For 25 years, they've been fighting that rebellion, and finally, they're coming for my head.
We got a lot to talk about this week. We got some. If you're listening to this, it's going up a little bit later. You're definitely listening.
You are listening to this. I'm pretty sure you are.
Look, my headspace, it's frazzled.
I know.
Right now,
None of us are doing great today.
A lot going on this week.
You are absolutely listening to this, and if you're listening to this when it comes out, it's going up a little bit later because we have 2 embargoes we're trying to hit, or at least honor for games we're going to cover. We are going to be talking about Assassin's Creed. We're going to be talking about the new Doom Dark Ages. Mm-hmm. But man, before we get to that, it's all behind the scenes here. We spent about an hour just decompressing because it's just hard to concentrate on anything right now. It's just like I keep on flicking on, but okay, what's going on? Be like, how does it just keep getting weirder and worse?
This entire week has felt like a denial of service attack, like spiritually.
Is this one of those weeks where decades happen?
What do you mean, like a decade passes, or
goes backwards.
I think that's the apocryphal Lenin quote, right? Like there are decades where nothing happens, and there are weeks where decades happen.
Oh, that's kind of a cool saying. Yeah, man, I don't know. It's just if you hear me grousing about it, you hear me on the Ramblecast. I want to thank everyone in the Discord for some suggestions. As I try to I don't know what the term is, but regain control of my consumer life, trying to just feel like more than a means to make tech billionaires rich, just trying to reevaluate where I spend my money because I am but a drop in the bucket, but I'm tired of feeling wrung out, man. All I feel good for now is being a subscriber to a bunch of services.
It's like the most American thing I have ever heard in my life. Like moderating your consumption habits is now a revolutionary act.
As close as we get.
I just feel it. I feel like just watching what's going on there. I just feel like it's like, how do we, Bernstein, Mr. Bernstein is like, how do we get more money from them? Smithers. That's my good. Thank you all for humoring my Simpsons.
I mean, even Smithers had a breaking point, you know?
Did he?
I mean, he was at least drunk enough to think he shot Mr. Burns at one point.
Oh, okay. Well, fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I mean, he didn't do it, but, spoilers for Who Shot Mr. Burns. It wasn't Smithers.
No, even I know that one. Jeez Louise.
Yeah. It was the baby. It's the children who will save us.
God damn, man. I'm sitting here now thinking about the last 7 days.
Yeah.
Since the last time we did this podcast last time.
A
Yeah.
lot has happened.
Stuff that happened last week feels like a month ago.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like the Switch 2 announcement and then David Lynch passing away 2 hours later. That feels like that happened a month ago. Because so many other things have happened since then.
Yeah, it's amazing how quickly time can move. It feels like a whole new set of things to be concerned about.
And I know there's bigger things, but I will say the David Lynch news really did just completely take the wind out of me that day. I just had nothing left. I went back and listened to some of our Twin Peaks podcasts because I needed something.
The timing of it really just felt like a cosmic fuck you.
Yeah.
Really that? Really?
Well, I was very thankful, Alex, for you having taken us through a David Lynch journey. And to honor the man while he was still alive.
And we may take some more of that journey down the road, as maybe one more tribute to the guy, but not right away. Not right away.
So if you're here, wherever you are, really, because it sounds like, to quote one Alex Navarro, nobody's doing great out there.
No.
But yeah, it's a little.
We'll talk about video games. We'll do it. We'll give you our level best here, but we have some things on our mind.
I was having trouble just kind of sitting and focusing.
Yeah.
I was I would sit and I'd be like, what am I going to play? And I'm like, I don't know. I'll just sit and stare at something. Watched a guy restore just watched a guy on YouTube. Speaking of our tech oligarchs, watched a guy restore a steam powered blacksmithing hammer. Was like, yeah, I will watch all 15 parts of this.
Now you're talking.
Yeah. That's
how we're going to. That's how we're going to get back to being self-sustaining.
We must
get back to steam power.
Yeah.
We must return.
You know what? There's no DRM on a steam engine.
It's true.
It's true.
They can't charge you a subscription for burning coal.
Not yet. Oh man. Yeah. I talked about it on Ramblecast, like trying to find. They're raising prices on my cell phone stuff, so you can listen to the Ramblecast. Thanks everybody again in our Discord for recommending other plans and stuff like that. And I wish I had other options here for home internet, but I think FiOS, and I'm actually pretty happy with Verizon's FiOS here. Knock on wood, it's been fairly reliable. No 2 gig in my neighborhood yet. They offer it other places, but not here, or not at an affordable price.
What are you going to do with 2 whole gigabits anyway?
I'm going to upgrade all my infrastructure.
Yeah, I know what I'm going to do.
I mean, that's exactly what's stopping me. I don't have. I think I've said this on the Tech Pod. I don't know if we've talked about it here. I could get 10 gigabit service tomorrow.
Jeez Louise.
10 gigabits?
10 gigabits.
And guess what? It's the same price as I'm paying now for one.
Really?
You have to, there's like a $300 install fee.
And
have to jump through whatever hoops of having a technician come out and do some stuff.
Yeah.
But it's exactly what you just said. I don't want to have to rebuild my entire home network.
I'm ready.
I will.
Around it.
I told my wife I'm ready. I let her know that I've started a YNAB tab before because Brad, you and I have the same actual router. That thing's aging out. It's time.
Sucks.
And I think I'm just going to get a 2.5. I think they're mostly 2.5 capable one.
Oh, you can get a 10.
Nah,
depending on what you're looking for.
That's a little too enterprise for me. I feel like the price difference is a little too big. But yeah, and then once I do that, then I might just go for the whole I'm not going to get 2 gig into the house, but I think I'm ready to start mucking around with 10 gigabit connections to my gaming PC and to my NAS to try all that stuff out.
You say 10?
10.
How about 40?
Nah.
What, can you do that?
I've got a 40 gigabit connection between my NAS and PC.
Is it 220s? Are they bonded?
It's
a single 40?
Yep. Get on. We'll talk later. Just get on eBay and get yourself a couple of cheap Mellanox Connect X3 cards, and you're good to go.
Okay. Do they have half height ones that are work on 8 PCI lanes or whatever it is?
Okay, but there's no consumer grade internet that will go that fast now here.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Also,
I think 10 is about as fast as it gets anywhere right now.
Also, before the people who are actual engineers or know data or are even slightly clued in message me, yeah, I know. There's probably no data transfer I'm going to do that would even saturate that because I don't have any drives really. Most of my drives that I'd be going from are spinning disk drives.
Yeah. It's only because I have NVMe drives in my server
That's wild.
That I'm able to go above.
Yeah. Above and beyond.
No. All right. Speaking of going above and beyond, you guys went above and beyond and did some appointment viewing.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, it's like
I don't know what above and beyond.
weird confluence of embargoes. I think if it had only been one or the other of these embargoes, we might not have delayed the podcast, but both on top, it's like, Alex played Assassin's Creed Shadows yesterday, and I got to talk to the directors of Doom: The Dark Ages around the same time and saw a thing about that. So
yeah, and we know that by the time the embargo is up for the Doom stuff, the Xbox Developer Direct probably will have happened with more interviews with the Doom guys.
Yeah, the thing I did was we were just seeing what was on that Developer Direct, which is now public as of this podcast going up. That just ended,
right?
So people can go watch the same presentation I saw, but then there was an hour-long Q&A with.
Awesome.
We'll get to it
so maybe that's good timing. We'll have your Q&A after people watch it. But first, Alex Navarro.
Yes.
Assassin's Creed Shadows, a game oft delayed, a game that feels like Ubisoft is putting a lot of pressure on, a game with 852 studios attached to it, a game with assassins.
Yeah, it is a game with assassins, as far as I can tell. There is a hidden blade, so we can officially confirm that.
I have some legitimate, genuine Assassin's Creed questions for you.
Okay.
Hang on, I got to butt in here. Do they here's my first question. Do they both have a hidden blade?
Oh.
Not that I saw.
Okay, because they've been positioning like Yasuke is the more like bruiser, like heavy combat guy, and then what's the female character's name?
Naue.
Like she's the more kind of stealthy, traditional assassin.
Correct.
Climbing walls type. So I didn't know if they would both get the hidden blade, but
all of that bears out. She gets the hidden blade from, let's just say, so there's some stuff in the prologue I will not spoil because it is sort of like the setup for like what these characters are and kind of like where their journey begins. But I will say that she gets the hidden blade like given to her at one point, and it seems like there is a familial connection.
What do you know offhand time period for this? I forgot.
So it is, I believe, the late 1500s. It is in that era when the Portuguese were showing up a bunch.
Okay.
Okay, so that's around when Shogun, the TV show, was set, right?
Yeah, and like Nobunaga Oda is like alive and, you know, obviously is a factor because Yasuke like is in his employ ultimately. That is sort of where I know he's a historical figure. I don't know the full breadth of like how much documentation there is about this person, though it sounds like it is, you know, fairly baked into the history. But basically, it seems like, you know, he is plucked from the hands of the Portuguese and then brought into the fold as one of Oda's like samurai and kind of like a trusted confidant.
So you played, what is it, the first like 4 hours of the game or something like that?
So the prologue, which they had us play first, was about an hour and a half, and then the rest of that was a section of missions that were much later in the game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So like I'm curious like how it feels structurally compared to, I mean, God, what was the last major release? Was
Valhalla.
Valhalla, right? So we're kind of like out of that trilogy of like heavy RPGs, right? Like,
are we?
Well, that was my question.
I guess that's the question. Is this I thought they were getting, especially after Mirage, getting back more to like a little bit more traditional Assassin's Creed structure, but you tell me.
Well, okay, so here's what I can say is that the setup for the two characters, obviously they are not aligned right at the beginning. They both have their own reasons for getting mixed up in whatever the larger conspiracy here is, which is you can use your imagination. There is an item. Okay. There is a collective of seemingly disparate Japanese warriors who seem like they really want that item.
Okay.
Perhaps they are aligned with a particular organization. It's hard to say. They don't say it out loud, so who can say? And maybe there are some people that are trying to prevent those people from doing bad business. Now,
okay.
So you learn about a lot of that in the prologue. You kind of get a sense of like who the villain figures might be, or at least what their armor looks like. You find out about Yasuke. You sort of get the introduction of him with the Portuguese priests, and kind of his introduction to Oda. And then once they kind of get past all that stuff, they skipped us ahead to a part where Naue and Yasuke were already working together. So whatever it is that brings those two crazy kids together, they don't show that. They did not show that in the preview build. But once they kind of put us out into the open world and put us in a particular region, structurally, there are maybe some slight differences to how the previous trilogy of games went, but it is still a gigantic open world. There are a bunch of objectives on the map, question marks that need to be uncovered. And most of what seemed different to me was how you go about tagging and uncovering those versus how you kind of did in the earlier games, which is to say that there's a little bit more investigation that sometimes has to go on. Like, obviously, running up to a question mark that just tells you, oh, you found this thing. Great.
Yeah.
But when you're up on the towers, the big Eagle Towers, so they want you to kind of scan around, look for all the objectives. You can individually tag all of them now. And there's also a scout function that lets you send scouts to certain areas. And they like, if you send enough of them over there, they will just tell you what's going on there. Like, oh, this is this area. This is what this is.
Wait, so I'm sorry. So you'll climb a tower. Is it like Breath of the Wild style where you're looking around and tagging stuff? Or,
yes.
Oh, okay.
But they stay as question marks until you either go to them or send scouts to them.
And so is sending scouts like pushing left bumper, or is sending scouts?
It's a menu option. Like you literally are just in there and you're like, send a scout here.
Are scouts like a finite resource? Like you only have so many, so you can only be doing so many scouting missions at a time? Is that how
it seems like there's a limit to the number of scouts you can send out into, and generally like some require more scouts than others to fully uncover unless you just go there.
How many shards do I have to collect before I can send more scouts?
They did not get into that in the build. I had a set number of scouts, and that's what I could do.
What are they coming back with? Or are they just saying like, okay, this question mark is this type of activity? Now I can tell you that it's this side mission that you'd be doing, or are they giving you more than that?
So the only time I really used scouts was on this one step of the early part of this quest line that you're doing, which is about uncovering a conspiracy. You're trying to find, I think, the first of those like enemy figures that are like basically the big collective of bad guys. And there's a whole story involving like a young lord who is a hostage technically to a larger warlord than the one his father is. And so there's like a whole uneasy alliance there. There's a whole thing going on. It kind of gets into the nitty gritty of like, Japanese, like, feudal politics. But so I needed to go find this one guard dude's house. And the objective just says it's in the eastern part of this town. Maybe, it's near this one thing. So I could just send a guard over there. And that eventually just uncovered the objective marker of like, this is where the house is.
All right.
But you could just go there yourself and poke around and find it.
You could also do that if you want to, yeah.
Huh.
Did you have a horse?
Yep. Summon your steed anytime you want. It does a kind of a running start now, so if you summon it, you just like hop right on there in motion. And, the navigation of the world feels very much like the last set of Assassin's Creed games, which is you're on your horse or you're running around wherever. Did
they allow you to switch characters whenever you want?
Not whenever you want, but it is pretty open. So if you're in the middle of a mission, there are set points in sort of the progression of those missions, it seems like, where you can opt to choose one character or the other.
Oh, those mid-mission?
Yeah, those are narrative missions or
side
missions?
Yeah,
narrative missions.
I would have thought that once you started a mission, you'd be locked into that character until you finished it.
In some cases, you are. There are certain areas where you cannot change characters willy-nilly, but if you're out in the open world, you can do it anytime. During the missions, there's basically like narrative, like bridge points where it's like, okay, so who do you want to go do this next leg of this or whatever? And I will say that is maybe one of the more slightly ham-fisted things in the game is the way they constantly turn to each other and be like, well, who wants to go do this? Should I go do this? And then one of them will be like, I'll take this one. I got this.
Seriously, like, for real though, like, are they both there with you? Like, if you choose one or the other, is it like when you split?
Is the other character running around? Not necessarily.
No, are they going on a different path? Like, if you redid that mission, would you get a different experience? Like, do they split up and like, all right, I'll go left, you go right. Who do you want to play as?
So there's one leg of that series of missions that I did where it seemed like at one point they referenced, I was playing as Yasuke, and they referenced that Naoe went out and took out a bunch of shinobi that were kind of off in the background. I don't know if that would have necessarily led to me going and doing a different section of that level.
Right.
But that's the only time they mentioned the idea that, like, Naoe was doing something active while you were fighting.
Okay, so back to the sorry, Brad, just on that, but back to the goofiness. So when you get to that point, is it just like cut and then the other character walks up alongside of you? Kind of thing?
Pretty much. Okay. Like as soon as there is like a cutscene, like they both just kind of walk into frame.
Okay. I was going to say, I'm sure you can't answer this yet. Like you'll have to play the whole game to say for sure. But does that just mean that they find a way to contrive a reason for them both to be present for every major story beat? Or
so they don't do that in the prologue, obviously, because they haven't met yet. And I have to imagine there are probably some missions that are very specifically unique to Yasuke and unique to Naoe that you can't have the other character do. But it seems like for anything that is like a main story progression thing where they're working together, they are all for you, just switching it up wherever you want.
Okay. I mean, if they were like presented as kind of a team or a duo who is pursuing a common goal, I guess it's easy enough to write scenarios where they would be together all the time.
Yeah.
When you're in the open world, when you switch, does the other character just swap in, or is it like Grand Theft Auto style there?
Okay.
Okay.
I wanted to ask that exact same question. Did they GTA 5 it?
Yeah.
They did not GTA 5
it. Okay.
Okay, so you just kind of like fade out, fade back in with a different character?
More or less, yeah.
Okay.
That's what I remember. I only did it once in the open world. Like most of the time when I was switching, it was just during the missions.
All right, Alex, my biggest question for this game, which I feel like has not penetrated my defenses yet.
Sure thing.
What is it actiony like the Valhalla's Odyssey loot games? Yeah. It is. Okay.
The loot is the thing I wanted to ask about the most.
It is the loot.
So the action is definitely like the combat system. It's different between the two characters. Obviously, they have different proficiencies. Yasuke is more of a bruiser. He is more of like, he can literally run down doors, and he has like charge attacks and
heavy.
He's a heavy, and he's not as good at the free climbing as Naoe is, though he can still do a certain amount of it. But now it also has a grappling hook, which makes like getting up like to those, let's just say those rooftops where it seems like it would be real awkward to try and climb up like a normal Assassin's Creed character.
Yeah.
She can kind of get past those pretty fast.
That weird backwards 45-degree jump.
Totally.
Yeah.
So the differences in combat are pretty stark. Not necessarily in a way that like makes it seem like impossible if you go into a big combat situation with Naue or have to do a stealth thing with Yasuke, but it seems like it's more difficult when you do it with the opposite intended character.
Yeah, is it parry based?
There is parrying. You can also just kind of run in and slash dudes if they aren't like particularly strong. But it is the same like weak strong attacks. And there are combos that are kind of rooted around those things. You have your set of assassin's tools, smoke bombs and kunai and what have you. And each character seems to have a selection of different available weapon types they can use. Like the big, was it like the Kanobo mace thing that like Yasuke has, the one that my D&D character has.
Yeah.
That's not something that Naue can use, but she has like her own set of like different types of weapons she can use.
And so,
now, as far as the loot goes,
yeah,
I never really saw any major loot. I'm not saying it's not there, but I think it might be more comparable to something like Valhalla if it is there, which is to say there are probably big armor sets and weapon types that you can get, but it isn't like they are just dumping endless piles of, like shitty little katanas and whatever at you. It seems more like if you are getting loot is because you beat some big thing or found some like deeply hidden thing, not just like, yo, here is your +1 mace or whatever.
Okay, so it's all kind of like handcrafted, like curated upgrade items, not...
I'm not saying that definitively.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I never uncovered like any weird amounts of like loot or weapons while I was going through those motions.
All right.
Did you find materials for upgrading?
There are materials. There is crafting. There is hunting, I believe. I did not really do much of it, but I did collect materials as I was just running around.
Got to make your bigger dart bag and your other belts. Did it have the Destiny style cursor menu when you were in the menus? Like, do you remember? This is a very weird question, I know, but you know what I mean?
I'm trying to think back on it. The menus did not seem radically different from what like the last spate of these games have been. There is some stuff involving, the animus and all that shit. I don't. They gave you a teaser of what it might be, but they really did not elaborate on what's going on with the animus, what's going on with Abstergo, what's going on with the real world.
Oh, so they are still doing present day stuff?
They said there's some kind of present day thing going on, but they really did not get into it at all with this demo.
Skill trees?
There are skill trees, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
I did not see the full extent of the skill trees, but they are there.
For each character, I assume?
Yeah, I believe there are individual skills for each character, but there might also be some that are like for both.
Like this is probably out of scope for what you saw, and I think they've addressed this before. But is this a game that has a bunch of targets, and you can kind of choose to some degree like how you go after who, when? Like it's just like, hey, here are the people you need to go get. Here's the open world. Like go get to work.
It's difficult to say. They did emphasize the idea that there's a certain amount of investigation that has to happen before you can identify the specific targets you're going after, and I think that's more about like finding the particular quests. So like if you look at a target in the menu, what ends up happening is you start seeing little icons pop up that are like, here are the objectives that are available to you to continue this investigation.
Oh.
That was, for instance, when I needed to go find that one guy's house. That was one of the things that showed up in that menu. And you can just highlight whichever one of those ones you want to do. And if there's no information about where you need to go or what you need to investigate, that's where stuff like the scouting can come in.
That's a cool idea. I like the idea of like side or early story missions kind of building up to you figuring out how to get somebody and take them down. But like,
yeah.
Mirage
the one
had
thing
some
I will
of that.
say, yeah, the one thing I will say is it does feel like they're just adding some steps to the already existing kind of systems that were there to try and make it feel a little bit more like an actual investigation and not just like you're hitting the next mark and now here you go, here's your target. That said, the one mission they chose to show us where, we eventually do uncover who the target is, it was so fucking staggeringly obvious to me from like the first cutscene who the target was going to be that I was like, honestly, kind of shocked that they just let it be that person. Like it was not like the investigation really just felt like I was going through the motions of getting to what I already knew.
So if they really want to do the Breath of the Wild thing or the true like kind of like player freedom thing to do there is to let you skip all of that shit and just go get them immediately if you can figure it out.
Yeah, it seems like they're not doing that. Like, there is a build-up that has to happen. There are certain, like, story choices you have to make. There are, like, dialogue choices. I can't tell you exactly how deep they run or how much effect they have. But, you know, like when I was talking to one of the feudal lords, there were some things that he questioned. I made some statements, and sometimes he seemed cool with it, and sometimes he seemed less cool with it. Hard to say how much that will affect, but basically, it does not seem like you can just go kill a guy and then accidentally get the right person. You know, like they want you to kind of go through the process here.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, like some of the narrative stuff also probably puts you in. You need to overhear a conversation to move a plot forward, or you know,
someone has to uncover the dark secret that lets you know the thing you've already kind of figured out.
So, just to kind of circle back, I was going to ask, and this is again, you probably didn't get here, but it's a concern of mine.
Mm-hmm.
In the skill tree, was there any sense that when you level up, each character gets a point, or is it like, hey, you
I never
use
leveled
this
up?
Character?
Was the thing. I did not level up in the thing, so I did not end up spending really much in the way of skill points at all.
Okay, here's hoping.
But you know, so when you look at the map, like there are levels on the individual regions. Like it is that old style of the last few Assassin's Creed games where it's like, you know, certain areas seem like they are harder depending on what level you are. But I got the sense that the map is fairly big, and, you know, enemies do have numbers on them. They have levels, but it seems like unless you are way under level compared to a guy you are about to try and assassinate, most, jumping assassinations or behind the back assassinations and stuff will be an instant kill. Most. If it's a really tough guy and he's got serious armor, that won't do it.
All right. But when you assassinate somebody, you should assassinate somebody.
I agree. I think that's how it should be. And it seemed like, by and large, when I went up to assassinate a person, they died instantly.
Okay. That was one of my big pet peeves. That, and you couldn't play with the blades during the loading menus. Are there loading menus?
There are. It's the same thing of just, you're running around in a big empty space.
Okay. Could you flick the blade out?
I didn't really mess. Like, honestly, the load times were very quick.
I would hope so.
I assume whatever PC they were running on was fairly strong. So I was streaming this, I should say. This is part of their, like, streaming setup. So, like, I was playing from some station like thousands of miles away, and you know there's some lag attached to that, but by and large I was able to play pretty normally and not run into issues.
I guess my big question is like how close are they hewing to post Origins Assassin's Creed versus pre? It sounds like maybe they're splitting the difference from how you're describing it.
I don't know how to explain this. So it doesn't feel radically different to me than what they've been doing with these last few big games. Like, obviously, I think that, like you said, some of the loot stuff seems a little more de-emphasized, but it was already a little more de-emphasized in Valhalla.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't play Valhalla, so...
Yeah, it wasn't not there, but it would definitely feel like they weren't dumping as much shit on you in that game, and this feels maybe similar. But the open world aspect of it feels very much like that same sort of, like, we played The Witcher 3 and really liked it thing that they've been doing for a while now. You know, the new ways of uncovering, you know, map objectives and stuff, like, sort of exist in concert with the old way of just walking up to a thing and then question mark goes away. And I don't know, like, it just doesn't feel like any kind of major radical departure. Like, it felt like a natural evolution of the thing they have been doing with these last few games. And maybe they're adding some more elements back in that are sort of like the old Assassin's Creed, but it's still a giant open world game. You know, it's still a thing where there are tons of map objectives. You know, there's tons of weird side activities to go do. You can go do sketch art or compose haikus based on fucking nature scenes that you see and things like that. And I think the thing that was really kind of nagging at me as I was playing this, and this is not necessarily any fault of the developers, but they are now choosing to do this in relatively close proximity to Ghost of Tsushima, which, you know, in design was a lot more like old Assassin's Creed versus what this one is doing. But it still felt a little bit like, even though the era has changed and, you know, obviously the storyline is very different, it kind of felt like, no, look, here's our Japan. We have our Japan. Here's our Japan. Let's do our Japan now. And I can't say that it really bowled me over in any major way of like, wow, this is crazy to be seeing feudal Japan like this and experiencing this. It's more like, yeah, this is kind of a different spin on a game I played like 4 years ago.
Yeah, I guess it was about 4 years. Yeah,
4 or 5 years ago.
As you were describing side activity, I was like, yeah, good. Tsushima also had haiku collectibles, I think.
Yeah,
now that you mention it.
That's a bit of a tough, that's a bit of a tough one. We've had some pretty nice rendered feudal Japans.
You know, you could argue they maybe were sort of asking for this because people like frothed at the mouth for a feudal Japan set Assassin's Creed for like a decade.
Yeah.
And they didn't,
if not longer.
And they didn't do it. And they didn't, like, that was like, I think we've talked about this before. I feel like coming out of the first 3 games, like as of like Assassin's Creed 3, when they did the American Revolution and people just started like the fantasizing about where they'll go next started up really heavily. Like that was the first thing everybody constantly was saying, you know? And so like they just kept putting it off and then somebody beat them to it.
And, you know, the story beats that are in there, it's none of it's bad. Like, I can't say that any of it was really like that exciting or intriguing. Like, I think some of the Yasuke setup stuff is done well, and I think they do a good job of sort of portraying like how he finds his way into this stuff. I think the Naoe revenge story feels a little like, even including their soundtrack choice, felt a little bit like, okay, yeah, you just watched a bunch of samurai movies and you were just doing a riff on this, which is fine. You know, whatever. I see what they're doing here. But, you know, once they kind of got you later in the game and you're kind of going through these, like, you know, political machinations and kind of going through the beats of what's going on with the, you know, these individual characters, it was all just like a little bit flat in a way that did not really make me, I don't know, just like, you know, jazzed or excited to go through these stories and, like, you know, really fight my way through this epic campaign. It all just kind of felt a little muted in a way that is hard to explain exactly like what it amounts to, especially with, you know, only having played like a limited amount of it here. But I did play like 4 hours, and by the end of it, I was just kind of like, I mean, I still like playing these games, but I didn't play anything here that really made me think this is going to be either a radical departure or like the next great, you know, advancement for this franchise.
Interesting. Okay. Did it feel like, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing because I like these types of games. Did it feel like you had gotten into the checklisty portion of it where you're like, okay, I've got a bunch of stuff to knock out?
They really don't. In that preview build, they really weren't about you going and doing a whole bunch of side stuff. Like okay. the way it was structured was very much like, here is the big story quest for this region. Go through it. And then when I ended up finishing about half an hour before the demo was over, they're like, hey, if you want to just jump back in the open world, just go look around. That was where I found like these sketch art, you know, like side areas and things like that. It also seemed like a bunch of areas were walled off in that demo, so I couldn't go too far afield of where the in-game region was. But, you know, it doesn't look bad. Yeah. It seems to play reasonably well.
Cities look good, or the bigger towns?
The cities look good. You know, the characters look about as good as any Assassin's Creed game of recent memory. But nothing really just, you know, bowled me over. Nothing really knocked my socks off. Nothing really sent my ninja mask flying. Like, it was really just kind of like, I'm just here and I'm doing these things that I have been doing in these games for a reasonably long time now. And it's all working relatively well.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, as far as being engaged by the story, you know, you could see maybe playing it from the beginning as opposed to being dropped in midway. You might have a little more investment at that point. But
and I do think the prologue was a lot more interesting than the stuff they had us do later in the game.
They kind of talked a big game about their like improved tech when this game got revealed, about like better lighting and like the seasons changing and stuff. Did you get any sense at all of that stuff?
So the lighting, it's hard to tell in a stream 1080p demo. You really couldn't get into the finer details of what the game looked like. It just kind of like, hey, I can see that this game is lit, but that was about it.
Oh, this game's lit.
I meant more like are they letting you knock lights out? I could have sworn that
you can extinguish flames in certain areas.
I thought they were doing the Splinter Cell thing of you could actually like knock out lights to make stealth easier and stuff.
Yep, you can knock out lights. As far as, sorry, what was the other thing you asked about? Oh, the weather.
Yeah.
So
do they have weather too?
Yeah, there's dynamic weather. Apparently, you know, as the seasons go, you know, that weather will change. The only thing I saw while I was playing was that it went from, you know, relatively calm weather to a pretty torrential rainstorm at one point while I was playing. But it's hard to say exactly whether that is a thing that is completely dynamic or was, you know, specific to the scenes that I was playing. But that rainstorm did stick around once I was done with those plot beats, so maybe that was just kind of there.
That's cool. Yeah, I'm curious to see how that stuff manifests. I mean, obviously the season stuff you're not going to see unless you play the whole thing, probably.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, if you're going into this with the mentality of, hey, I just want to play more Assassin's Creed and they're doing another big game, I want to play that, then yeah, it seems like that this is totally going to be fine. if you are like maybe like Vinny and are a little bit tired out with the direction the last 3 big games went in, it doesn't seem like it is going that far afield of where those games were headed and what have been evolving to. Like it, if anything, the dual protagonist thing seems like the thing that are hanging their hat on the most. And while those 2 characters do control very differently, I'm not sure that I've come to the conclusion that there's like a great narrative or just, like justification for having the two character thing, other than you want a ninja and you want a big samurai.
Right. We couldn't decide.
Yeah.
I think they just, my complaint, if I have one really, which I do, about some of those, and I didn't play Valhalla and I didn't really play Odyssey. So really I kind of just bounce off of those. It's the bloat. It's just kind of the I mean, talking to you about it a lot of it, just how long you can spend in those worlds before kind of getting to the conclusion.
Yeah. And I again, this is a chunk. It was a 4-hour chunk. I don't get the impression that they are in any way interested in you spending less time in this world than you have the last handful. Okay. Whether it's through bloat or whether it's through more careful design, whatever. It's hard to tell from what I played, but I would say that they would still like you to be here for a very long time.
I mean, look, in the spirit of retaking control of your consumption habits, you can choose how long you spend in that world.
I choose.
Yeah. And I'm going to do it because I like playing these games, but I think I went in hoping for a little bit more in terms of like, this is the next big exciting step in Assassin's Creed, and not here is more Assassin's Creed, we're still doing that stuff.
Yeah, I have not played an Assassin's Syndicate, so I am going to give this a shot. I'm actually curious about this because I didn't burn out on any of those previous games.
I would play Origins.
Yeah, I think Origins is very good.
Yeah.
That's what I would do.
That still seems like the one people look back on the most fondly of those 3.
It definitely had the best story of all of them by a wide margin.
You reminded me. I had forgotten that Ghost of Yote is this year. For some reason, I was thinking they had announced that as a 2026 game.
Well, we've seen so little of it up to this point. So
like Shadows and that coming out in literally the same year is some serious like head-to-head open world feudal Japan game business.
Yeah,
I'm excited for this to check it out. I'm very curious, both from somebody who enjoys playing games, but also from somebody who covers it, how this does for them as well. It seems like they're hanging their hat on this one.
That's the thing. And that's the thing I'm a little bit worried about, is that it seems like they're pinning a lot of hopes and dreams to this thing. And I mean, look, I think it'll sell fine.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not really my concern, but whether this is going to be the thing that revitalizes this franchise and maybe sets the course right at that company, I don't know, based on what I played.
Yeah, we'll see. They by the time this podcast goes up, I was just looking to see if they also will have some kind of reveal, and it sounds like they are doing a gameplay demo or reveal around the time this goes up. So probably similar to the stuff you saw.
It's probably the same build, I would have to imagine. Yeah.
So if people want to check that out as well.
Wait, you mean playable?
No.
Like they're doing like a stream.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Gameplay. Chat with the game director as we pursue a high-ranking target and explore the Harima province with Noe and Yasuke.
Yep, that is exactly the stuff I played.
Yeah. So yeah, I might check that out just to kind of see what this looks like. See how many cherry blossoms I can count. Probably a lot. Did you slice a cherry blossom in half?
I don't recall doing that at any point.
Wow.
I did break a lot of crates.
Good. Was there anything in them?
Stuff.
Crafting materials?
Yeah, crafting materials mostly.
Okay, fair enough. I will be, last thing I'll say is, since we talked about Origins, I will be curious to see at the bottom of that tech tree if they go down the kind of more ridiculous Origins route where you are doing like remote controlled arrows and, all of that nonsense, or if they try to keep it a little more grounded. Did you get a chance to use the Berserker dart? Always make the guys fight each other.
No, I didn't. That was not in my kit that I could tell. Okay. I had the smoke bombs, I had the various bladed weapons, ninja stars and what have you, but I did not see a Berserk dart.
I do like those. I do like to make them fight.
No, I agree. That's always the best way to go.
Thanks, Alex. That game is out March. Are we March?
Yeah,
now?
March.
March. So pretty soon. It was supposed to be out next month, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
They delayed by a few weeks. And I'll say, look, from a purely like technical perspective, a couple of like minor glitches here and there, but nothing crazy. Like it seemed like that game was running pretty stable.
Cool. Cool. Looking forward to it. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back, and we're going to talk about Doom. I keep forgetting. Is it the Dark Ages or the Dark Age?
Doom, the Dark Ages.
The Dark Ages. As soon as we come back, stick around. And we are back. And for those listening on the public feed, it is possible you heard one of our first dynamic ads. Hopefully that worked. I think this might be the first episode where those could be inserted.
Yes, although actually they may have heard a pre-roll as well at the top of the show. I forget.
It's possible.
Probably, maybe.
We don't know how this works either.
We talked about that a couple of episodes ago.
Yes, those are intentional, just so you know.
Just so you know.
And as always, feel free to reach out to us if anything sneaks in there that you think is not great.
We hate sneaky ads.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of, wow, this is okay. You know what I was looking up on
Find the segue.
Yeah, okay, here we go. When I was looking up Assassin's Creed stuff to see the timeline, and I was like, oh, okay, actually, this one, Shadows is not that far away from one of my favorite Assassin's Creed's 2, which takes place at the late 1400s into the 1500s. But there's a big chunk there from like 1100 to like the 1400s where there's not a lot there. Some would call it maybe the Dark Ages. They really have not explored well. But another game.
The longest segue.
Yeah, you really took the long route to get there.
There's another game maybe that is taking the opportunity to chew on the Dark Ages.
Yeah, all right.
Or some form of the Dark Ages.
Really have no idea what's going on here, Brad. What do you know?
Probably a totally separate set of Dark Ages than Hell.
Is it always the Dark Ages in Hell?
Yeah, probably.
Was there a Renaissance in Hell?
Yeah.
No, look, there are periods in Hell when, information is much more well documented, and as we all know, that's what the Dark Ages actually refer to. So, clearly that, I think Hell's media empire is humming these days.
Yes.
Are we currently in the Hell Renaissance? Is that what's going on here?
Do we live in Hell?
Is this a renaissance for somebody? Is somebody's Renaissance somebody else's Hell? Is that Brad? Please explain.
Should we consult the authoritative document Seasons in the Abyss for?
Yes, please.
For the last word on
a Hell-a-sance?
On the periods of time in Hell.
Yes, thank you. Well, you saw Doom: The Dark Ages.
Yeah, like we said at the top, this was just the presentation from the developer direct that has now just streamed, so you can just go watch the same presentation I saw. But we can talk about it, and we did that Q&A, so I got some more details about it there. The game's coming out in May, which was kind of a shock because I don't think they've touched on this game at all since they announced it last summer.
Not in a major way, no.
They really haven't shown more of it, talked much more about it, and then now they're showing a good bit more and talking. Kind of surprised what the nature of the game is, actually, but I was also just shocked. They were like, by the way, it's out in 4 months. Like, all right, cool. I'll play a new Doom from this studio in 4 months, sure.
So this is just some background. For me, this is when I do the thing of like I ask questions that sometimes I only know half the answer to. There's Doom, the reboot, 2016. Is that right?
2016. Mm-hmm. That's kind of how people refer to it now. Is Doom 2016.
So there's Doom 2016, and then there was the full sequel to that,
Doom Eternal.
There was DLC for 2016.
Yeah, one. Okay. No. Sorry, no. I don't know if they ever put anything out for 2016. Actually, Eternal had a big DLC episode.
Okay. And then now this is the next. So there've been two full games since the reboot, and this is the third full game.
Yeah, this is like the third Doom game from this iteration of id Software, basically.
Okay.
Like Rage was the last game that came out under like any of the original founding members of id Software, and even that was kind of a stretch. But then this is like 2016 was like the first like big post anybody who founded id being their game.
Okay,
was incredible. Been on record many times about how good I think that game is. Anyway,
yeah, 2016 was amazing. You played some of the first DLC or the second one? The what was it? The Gods, Ancient Gods,
I believe.
There were two parts for
Eternal. Yes, there were 2 episodes to that, I believe.
So
it was like one of the last streams we did at Giant Bomb actually was me playing some of Ancient Gods.
So you are versed in the Doomology.
Yeah. I reviewed both of those games for Giant Bomb. I like Eternal. Eternal's like kind of a polarizing game. Like some people love it to death. Other people did not love the direction they took it in as much. They seem to have really taken that feedback into account here because that presentation straight up opens with like here's how this is different from Eternal.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
In a way that maybe me having reviewed Eternal, maybe I was a little more acutely aware of than the average person would be, but it really sounded to me like, here's what we're doing with this one and how it's different from that. Again, Eternal, not a bad game, but
very, for my, I didn't go through Eternal, finish it. I really loved 2016. Eternal had the grappling hook, right? Or
like Eternal, like I think the thing that was maybe the most polarizing about Eternal was that it was just very mobility focused.
Yeah.
Grappling hook, air dashes.
Yeah.
Lots of jump pads. You were spending a lot of time in the air. Those like pole vaulting. Yes. You would like vault off those poles.
Yes.
Like it was a cool idea, but it was just very different.
Not quite platforming, but platforming adjacent in some spots.
Pretty serious air maneuvering, platforming stuff. A lot of that. Like the line from this presentation, like right off the bat, basically is like, if you were a fighter jet in Eternal, in this game you're a tank, is what they said.
Okay.
Flat out. So like they're very much saying this is a much more grounded game. You are much heavier in this. Does not seem like you're going to be spending a lot of time in the air. Like the weapons are much heavier. This felt like I don't want to make too many assumptions, although I did get a call out by name in the Q&A later on. There was one line of that presentation that felt like it was written directly to me, which was basically like paraphrasing, like, we went back and looked at the original Doom, and there's a lot more of like projectiles coming at you that you need to like bob and weave and juke and strafe around. I was like, yes, I have dodged a lot of imp fireballs in my time. I am down for more of that. So it sounds like it's not slower paced exactly, but definitely less, like I said, less air dashing. In fact, I don't think any air dashing. Very much more on the ground, like juking around projectiles. You saw the shield when they announced this game last year. That's apparently like kind of a focal point of the gameplay. Okay. I think it's called the saw shield. Okay. Because it's a shield with a saw on the sides of it.
Hey, fair enough.
Of course. But it sounds like parries and counters, blocks, parries, and counters are like a huge part of the gameplay now.
Were those not in 2016?
Not really that I remember.
I thought maybe I'm misremembering. Of like getting people into those, was it like those glowy?
Oh, the glory kill stuff.
Yeah.
Like you could kind of stun people. Okay. Maybe this feels much more. This is much more robust. Is the sense I got. To
be fair, I'm not sure how you would necessarily parry somebody into those. You didn't have a lot of blocking ability in 2016.
Yeah. This is full on. You have the shield at all times, and there are lots of abilities you can parry. You can like send projectiles back at enemies.
Okay.
I gather there's probably, in fact, I think they said this in the Q&A, that there will be, if you remember the Marauder in Eternal, Marauder was like this real motherfucker of an enemy that you had to like put into a stun state to damage him. You had to like kind of.
What was their main body shape?
It was kind of just like a tall bipedal dude with horns, I guess.
Okay,
I think he had a shield.
Totally. Okay,
yes.
Okay.
So like they said, there would be enemies like that out there in this game that are kind of like your heavy skill checks, that are like, okay, you really need to be on top of your parries and the other elements of this combat system to fight these extra tough enemies out there.
And
the shield is all contextual. It's all one button, which they didn't get into detail how that's going to work. But so like whether you block or parry or counter or whatever, I guess is all sort of contextual to what's happening. You don't have to hit different buttons to do that stuff. Like Hugo, the director of both games, flat out said Eternal was a little too complicated in retrospect.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I felt about it.
That's his view on it, at least. So like they have really tried to simplify the control scheme and make things more contextual, more approachable. Like you've only got one button for your shield.
But you could,
for example,
in the trailer, and I don't know if you saw this in what they showed, but in the trailer you can like Captain America that shield, can't you? Like throw it out there.
Yeah, I think so.
Is that
might be part of a counter? I don't know. They didn't get into a lot of detail about how that's going to work. There's also a lot of melee combat. You've got like 3 different melee weapons as well. Ooh. But there's also only one melee button.
Okay.
So I assume the use of those melee weapons, if I understood correctly, that's the case. That'll be contextual as well.
And all right, I guess maybe this is for me and maybe for some other people out there. What are we talking about in terms of setup here? Is this during the Dark Ages?
It is a prequel to 2016.
Okay.
So like I'm curious to see how that pans out.
Okay.
I really enjoyed the non sequitur at the beginning of 2016 where Doom Guy wakes up in a sarcophagus in a lab with like demonic runes all over him.
He's like revered. He's,
right. He's like, it's like this guy has become this like angelic instrument of retribution.
Yeah.
Where the fuck did this come from? This is an amazing new direction for this series.
Fear of the Doom guy. Yeah.
Right. Like, I guess this is going to kind of explain how that came about. So, whether that it's good or not to explain that stuff is left to the listener, I guess. We'll see how it pans out. But that is the setup. And it seems like it is pretty much all in hell or hell-like places.
I mean, you got guns, right? You're still shooting.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like they flat out in the presentation, they're like they lead with the shield and the melee stuff, but then they're like, hey, look, it's Doom.
Yeah,
it's still about guns,
right?
Mm-hmm. There are a lot of guns in this, and they're going a lot heavier on story. They said, like a lot more cutscenes with actual characters in them speaking and stuff.
Not the Doom guy. The Doom guy
from the looks of things,
right?
Not really. No,
crushed a lot of things.
Yes. My question got asked in the Q&A. I asked if they're still doing the hub like they had in Eternal. They are not.
Okay.
Eternal, you had that like spaceship castle thing that you went back to between missions, and there was stuff to do there. This is back to the more linear 2016 kind of level based thing. Although they show some of this in the presentation, like it's not an open world game, because somebody asked that in the Q&A and they were like, okay, no, it's not open world, but it is open world-ish, or it kind of has open world elements. It sounds like individual levels will be much bigger and more open and more like Battlefield-y, and I mean lowercase b, not Battlefield, the EA franchise, but
sure. Right.
Like a big area. Like there were shots in there of like dozens of enemies at a time coming at you across this like big wide battlefield.
So you
not as much. I mean, there will be corridors, I'm sure. There will be like caves and that type of shit. And they said exploration and collectibles are still a big deal, but it seems like much bigger open spaces, and some of those bigger levels, it seems like you're going to be able to kind of explore and tackle things as you go. It's like, oh, I want to go pursue the objective, or I want to go over here and poke around in this cave system and see if I can find a collectible. Kind of a little more.
Trying to think of the
non-linearity
hell stuff from 2016, and my memory is terrible, but I remember being able to go off the path, at least somewhat off the path.
Yeah, there were definitely like a lot of, like, you collected the little Doom Guy toys and stuff like that. There were a lot of those off little tunnels off to the side and stuff.
You just couldn't flat out just run around, right?
Right. This sounds like it, and in fact looks like it's much bigger spaces and bigger battles with more enemies at a time.
Wow. So again, you didn't get to play it,
no.
But from what you saw, is it still have? I don't know I feel like there's probably some better term for it, but it's like deliberate mania with the combat puzzle style stuff, where you're just like, okay, when you watch somebody who really knows what they're doing in the modern Dooms, they are like, okay, got this, got my ammo, jump over here, do this. There's like a science to it.
Yes, absolutely. Like Eternal really took that to its logical extreme, I think. Like Doom Eternal straight up to me is basically the first person shooter equivalent of Devil May Cry.
Sure.
In the way that people who are really serious about it approach it as this extremely technical exercise that can be perfected.
Yeah, very technical. That's the way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it seems like, I mean, they didn't get a ton of detail on that, but it seems like this probably will have somewhat of a similar vibe to it, because you still see the like colored power-ups popping out of people as you kill them. It's like, I forget what the colors are. It's like green for ammo, red for health, purple for, there's no chainsaw this time, but maybe there's fuel, saw shield fuel or whatever.
Right.
Like it still seems like it's going to have that element most likely of do this attack to get this resource, leapfrog your cooldowns, etc.
Because that stuff was awesome. It got a little too much for me in Eternal, but in 2016, you sometimes would lock in and get that almost John Wick style feeling of like, I am just bouncing around as a murder machine.
Totally. And the way you would kind of like gravitate to the glory kills, they have the really smart way that it's like there's some amount of distance that it'll close the distance for you when you hit the glory kill button. They said there's a new glory kill system in this, but they did not go into detail on that. I think to my mind, the other big complaint about Eternal was that it was maybe just a little rigid in how you had to play it, because there were a lot of enemies that like, okay, I've got to hit this one skill shot with this specific weapon to take these guys down, like I've got to shoot the gun off the back of this thing, or it's just going to murder me, and I have to do that in a specific way.
Oh, I remember that from you doing the DLC. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know if this is going to have that same kind of rock, paper, scissors style of I have to. It sounded it really sounded like they're trying to blend the two games, but they're definitely back more toward 2016 in some ways.
Okay.
Gameplay wise. I think the most interesting thing I saw about the difficulty stuff is they're doing difficulty customization now, like so many games do. You know, it's like, oh, you could got sliders for how much damage you take, how much damage you put out, stuff like that. One of those sliders is game speed.
What is that?
Which I don't think you see very often in most games with difficulty customization, particularly first-person shooters. Maybe some of the other boomer shooters on Steam are doing this these days, and I haven't seen it, but it lets you speed up or slow down the game itself, the speed that the game runs. So
right, I think conceptually I know what you're saying, but like it's not a slow motion. You're just saying like
I mean, it would be if you put I don't know how far down the slider goes. I want to say on the top end it goes up to 150%.
Okay.
So you can make the game half again faster than it is by default.
Dang.
I don't know how much. I just at a guess, maybe it goes down to 50% speed or something, but you absolutely would be putting it into some sort of effectively a slow motion state if you wanted to lower the game speed to, and then, you know, it's like basically an accessibility thing.
Right. And it's not like you're lowering frame rate. You're just lowering.
No. Right, the game would just be running at a slower speed temporarily or whatever. But the idea of, I assume that stuff is kind of independent of the base difficulty levels. The idea of putting it on Nightmare and then also jacking it up to 150% speed.
I don't like it.
Like people are going to be posting some ridiculous videos of this game, most likely.
I wonder if you play it, it's like in Dragon Ball Z, you train with the weights on. You play it at 125%, and then you go back to 100. You're like, this is like slow motion. This is like baby speed.
Yeah.
That's funny.
It looks cool. I'm optimistic about a lot of the changes they're making. It seems like they're kind of speaking more my language with this one. And again, I did not dislike Eternal at all, but it was a different thing, and this seems like it's maybe a little bit more in my nostalgic wheelhouse a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I love that
dragon.
You said they're doing more narrative stuff.
Dragon.
Yeah,
there's like the cutscenes looked pretty robust, like a bunch of different characters. There's a dragon you can ride. There's also kind of like a medieval mech that you can pilot.
Whoa.
And they said those are not like throwaway action interludes, that those both have like systems attached to them and mini bosses to fight and stuff.
Do you think we get you think since this is the prequel and they've kind of hinted at some of this in the launch trailers or the announced trailers, you think we get the origin story here for Doom Guy?
I got the one question asked in the Q&A, and I did not push my luck asking a second one. Okay. I really wanted to. The other question I typed and did not click submit on was, if this is a prequel to 2016, does that make this the sequel to Doom 2?
Oh, weird.
Kind of would have to, right?
I don't know. You know much more about what Doom lore is, to me.
Unpacking the Doom timeline is right up there with unpacking the Zelda timeline. Like, I refuse to do it.
Are they supposed to be continuous or like contiguous? Like one touches the other?
I mean, I think Doom 3 is its own thing that you don't really include in this, but other than that,
okay.
The implication of 2016 seemed to be that you're the same Doom guy from the first two games.
But this, they have said that this takes place. This is so pedantic, but it takes place before 2016, but does not necessarily take place before Doom 2, right? Or does? You don't know. It could be the first Doom. It could just be a prequel to 1.
This is going to be the one that unites the timelines.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I don't know. I can't remember how does 2 end? I mean, you kill the icon of sin. You destroy John Romero's head at the end of 2, and I don't know really where it leaves you. I mean, I could go pull up like the ending text of that game, because the endings in games back then were a paragraph of text.
Right. And maybe a splash screen.
Like, I'm trying to think. I mean, 2 is largely set on Earth, and again, who gives a shit? Like, I don't care.
I mean, I kind of do. Like, I mean, look, if I just get the origins of like him being the weapon of a god or whatever it is.
Like, don't get me wrong, Doom 2 Hell on Earth was a pretty good title for 15-year-old me at the time, but like, you know, do I care that it was set on Earth? Not especially.
Right.
I thought that was a cool aspect of Doom Eternal, though, that they did go to Earth. Like, that was kind of neat. But anyway, like, I'm largely being facetious when I even try to unpack any of this stuff, but it is kind of fun to speculate about.
Yeah, I'm in it for the dumb. That's why I like 2016 Doom too, because I thought the story was so dumb and fun.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it was like
Samuel
the corporate.
Hayden.
Yes, like the corporate satire was really good in 2016. The like irreverence about itself,
hell energy.
Like, it really did not take itself seriously at all.
Like
that dude. the first like 15, 20 minutes of 2016 is like maybe the most profound statement of intent I have ever seen a video game make in my life.
It's very good.
Like, you know exactly what the fuck that, like right around the time that he like cocks the shotgun in time with the music, right after he like punches the intercom to death as the narrator is trying to tell him what to do. It's like, you know exactly what that game is about. Anyway, this game looks cool.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm glad you kind of liked what they were showing in that presentation. I can't wait to watch that.
Yes, I will happily. Let's say I'll probably be very much in the mood to sink into a Doom game by about May.
Sure. Yeah. I would say May is not too far away now. So that is Doom: The Dark Ages, and it sounds like again, you can watch what Brad saw during their developer direct, or you did, and then are listening to this. And the same thing with Assassin's Creed. It sounds like you can go and watch a similar presentation to what Alex played through.
Yeah, real quick. The other question I would have asked if I had a third question is this coming out on PS5?
Did they not say?
I don't believe so. Maybe the platforms are announced, actually. That maybe is actually a stupid question to ask if that's just out there.
I wonder.
Let me double check real quick if they have announced platforms. Okay.
Yeah.
For that.
Microsoft seems like they have been so ahead of trying to promote stuff.
I'm sorry, it is already announced for PS5. Okay. For some reason, I thought they had only announced it for PC and Xbox.
But day and date on PS5, right?
This just lists all the platforms. The official site here just says coming 20. Well, of course, at the time of this recording, they have not announced the release date of May 15th yet.
Okay.
But I assume it'll be day and date on everything.
Okay.
Because, like, you know, the last two games were on PS5 because that was before the acquisition really cleared.
Got it.
In the case of Eternal, or was just starting to.
It was that long ago, huh?
Yes. Or in fact, did the acquisition happen after Eternal came out? I can't even remember.
I don't remember.
And anyway, it seems like, you know, some stuff like Starfield, obviously, they have chosen to hold back as far as Bethesda games go as a kind of competitive advantage, but it sounds like this one probably just coming to everything.
Coming soon. Yeah. Coming soon. That's Doom: The Dark Ages. Anything else you guys want to touch on before we get into the news? I've kind of mostly been mopping up. I'll mention, Alex, I played, I could not wait any longer. I was,
you got into Roottrees?
I did. It's weird. I was like, I had it and I was like, man, I should wait for Abby to get back and settled to play this. And then I was like, I can't, I got to do it. So I just did the tutorial. I think that game is fucking awesome.
It's great. So I got to what I think is like kind of the first big plot turn in it, which I'm not going to obviously say what it is, but kind of it's sort of after you get about like somewhere in the neighborhood of like 15 or 18 of them locked in. And you know, look, I the twists don't seem like completely insane, though it's possible maybe there's more I'm not even really realizing it. But the burning desire to continue to pluck away at that thing and just sort of like add more and more and do more and more is like rising every time I boot it up. Like it's a game that I think actually like has a good slow roll of like, okay, yeah, this seems cool. And then it just kind of keeps getting like, it just keeps working, you know?
The thing I didn't realize, even after you guys had talked about it some, was how much I would enjoy the dated parlance and references that like the style the things are written in, you know, I only did the kind of tutorial, and then I went a little bit further because I couldn't stop myself because I just had to keep going. But you know, the advertising, the way it's written, these like radical things, or like, you know, like the candy advertising, the write-ups, the way the like teeny bopper magazines are written. I really enjoy all of that stuff.
And they've really started getting into the weeds now of like, you know, they show you a photo and it's like, you know, these four siblings are grouped together in this, but and they made this person stand on that side. And it's like the way they are starting to tease out the like, hey, you have enough information to assume that this will be a thing you refer back to later, but you don't have enough to work with yet. And that's the really enticing shit of like, oh, I have some breadcrumb trails, but I can't do anything with them yet. I can't wait until I get the thing that unlocks that.
Yeah, the one missing a piece. Yeah, I
actually think their hint system is really good. Like they give you like 5 tiers of hint before they just straight up tell you, go look at that thing, you dumbass. Okay. And I think it's pretty well done.
It seems like a really promising. Look, there's a lot going on in 2025. Mm-hmm. Like one possibly like positive development is that these sort of like a Golden Idol likes, or maybe Oberdin likes, is a fair
the social deduction games.
Like Golden Idol was certainly not the first one. It's just the one I think of the most. But like, if this becomes a big thing where like people left and right are trying their hand at this kind of game, like that seems like a pretty cool thing to happen.
I think to me structurally this one just works a little better for me because I really liked, Her Story, which is another game that gets kind of roped into this because it was of the search mechanic aspect of it. But I wasn't as big on like Oberdin or on the Golden Idol games, and I think that just something about the searchable database aspect of this and the way that you are piecing information together that way just works better for me personally.
There's something really charming or satisfying, or I don't know, about like web searching the solutions to puzzles, because that's what I spend all day web searching the solutions to problems in real life.
I think they do a fun thing with the period piece-ness of it in the web searching, then periodical searchings with a mix of physical
and like the limits of that information.
Yeah. The thing I didn't realize either was when you search for a thing, they summarize basically. They'll be like, "Hey, there's a couple of articles here, but really nothing new that you're gonna get from this. Like, don't worry, don't sweat it. You're good."
That's actually one of its great coups, is that it's very good at communicating to you that like you have found the limits of what you can find with this particular piece of evidence.
Yeah, what does it have? What is the thing called? There's like a little number on the piece of evidence. I forget what they call it, but it's like, hey, this is how many things we think.
It's like clues. Those are the number of clues that are attached to this.
Yeah, that you could solve with it, which is also very cool. It's just well done. Even talking about it talking about it a lot last time, I was still impressed with just how well put together it feels.
Yeah, it's very smartly put together. So I've gotten further into that, as I said, though it's one of those things where I'm reserving when I have like a nice couple of hours where I can just sit there and poke at it.
The Roottrees are dead. That's
the Roottrees are dead. The other game I did boot up is Dynasty Warriors Origins.
Oh yeah, and now you know everything.
I had to know because I have not played a new Dynasty Warriors game in several years. It has been a while. I've not played any Samurai Warriors games. I did not really play the Hyrule Warriors games. So it has actually been a while since me and Omega Force were acquainted with one another. And I saw people talking some mess about how this one actually felt like pretty good compared to where things had been with that franchise.
What was the last one they made?
The last one they made, I want to say, was like 3 or 4 years ago, maybe?
Yeah, maybe it's not been that long. I certainly don't keep up with them.
I think this might be the first one in this generation of consoles, but I'm not 100% certain about that.
9 came out in 2018, so this is the 10th Dynasty.
And so, again, I'm not here to declare anything definitive about like what is definitely new, because there are like several of these I have not played since I was on Dynasty Warriors editor duty at GameSpot. But that said, playing this one the little bit that I have, the few hours I put into it, it's still Dynasty Warriors. Okay. There's no getting away from that. It is still you on a battlefield fighting scads and scads of guys with questionable AI. But it doesn't look bad. Okay. The environments look pretty decent. I'd say it looks about, at the range of a good PS4 game.
Okay.
There is a whole progression system here where you are playing a nameless character. You give them a name. They have forgotten their past, as one often does in these games or in video games. And there's an implication that maybe you are some kind of special person. You don't really know why, but you get hooked up with, okay, it's cow in English, but I know it's not pronounced that way. It's like Cao Cao or something like that in Chinese. And sort of his band of generals as they go on to fight the Yellow Turban Rebellion.
If this game is Origins, what the hell were the other 9 or so games that also featured the Yellow Turban Rebellion?
They were the necessary iterative steps to get us to the true Dynasty Warriors, which is this.
The game you call Origins is supposed to be set before all of that.
Look, don't worry your pretty little head about it. None of it matters. What matters is they made a pretty good look in one of these games. Seems to run real well. The main progression thing is that there's an open world map now, and but not in the like traditional sense. Okay, Vinny, you remember that game where the water tastes like wine? Where you're like this skeleton dude that's walking across like a map of the United States, but like you're like when you're doing the map stuff, you're like a giant figure kind of walking across what looks like an old timey map.
Okay, yeah, I think I do remember that.
So the map is set up with like a bunch of like villages and like other things around and like locations. There's like waypoints and stuff, but you're like a giant version of your character walking across that map to the next objective, whatever that is.
It's like wine reference. That was one where like they got a bunch of writers to come in and do. Yeah. Okay.
Bunch of writers. Sting was doing the narration.
Yeah.
Sting sadly is not in this game, but nonetheless, it is that style of map of like walking across.
Hang on. The Sting?
Yeah, Sting was in Where the Water Tastes Like Wine.
What?
Yeah, he was the narrator character. He was like the wolf character, I think.
How did they both... Man.
Look, there's a lot of things about that game that I still don't fully understand, but...
That's impressive.
Them pulling that one off was pretty good. But yeah, so that seems to be the main progression. There's downtime between like the big battles where you will go into the shop, buy new weapons, buy new abilities. You get skill points. Yes, there's a skill tree. There are actually, I think, multiple skill trees. And it all kind of ties into your main character, who is, again, you name them, but everyone just kind of, never actually says your name out loud. And you're just there adventuring alongside all the figures from history you know from the other 9 Dynasty Warriors games.
That doesn't help me, but I'm sure it helps somebody.
Look, I've always been willing to go along with the Dynasty Warriors stuff, but I always run into a wall eventually where it's just like the mindless mashing just gets uninteresting after a certain point. It's why I thought the Empires games were always like a little bit more interesting, because at least there is a strategy element that is on top of all the battles. But this, it's more just like, hey, you're still doing all the battles. There's a narrative here. There's an open world to just kind of poke around and do the skirmishes and other things. But it is still at its core, it is a Dynasty Warriors thing. But I've not hit that wall yet. And I'm having just enough fun right now saying that it's been long enough since I played one of these that I'm not burning out right away.
Okay. Here's the question I was waiting to ask, but then looking at the Wikipedia page, they asked it for me.
Okay.
Omega Force set a goal of displaying 10,000 soldiers on the screen.
Okay.
Did they achieve that goal?
I haven't gone in and individually counted. At the bare minimum of what I have seen so far, there are definitely hundreds, if not low thousands of dudes on screen.
Okay, that's all I
bet
know.
for some of the bigger battles, they might be doing that.
As long as it feels like there are 10,000 soldiers on the screen, that's all that matters.
There's still a lot of guys that they have not skimped on the lot of guys.
That's so many people to render.
I know. And again, they are not doing this in the grandest PlayStation 5, maximum quality of graphics that maybe you are used to. But I mean, nothing looks that muddy. Nothing looks like, like kind of like PS2 era Dynasty Warriors looked. It seems totally serviceable and seems to run well.
Great.
All right.
Dynasty Warriors Origins. Get out there. What is it? Romance of the Three Kingdoms? Is that
Yeah.
You're
finally going to figure out. You're finally going to be friends with Lu Bu.
Yeah. I had to. That was the other reason I pulled up Wikipedia, was to make sure that Lu Bu is in there, and it is. He is, but Lu Bu is not available by default. Only playable as a companion after completing all stories and beating him at Hulao Gate on Ultimate Warrior difficulty.
Oh, well, that's good to know.
It's been a long time, but I feel like I remember Lu Bu was always the kind of stealth or not so stealth best character, right?
Oh yeah, and also like one of the most like ornate looking, if I remember correctly.
Yes. Dynasty Warriors still here, not back, still here.
Listen, this is going to finally be my inroad to learning Chinese.
Great.
And how to fucking pronounce things in Chinese, because I think we're all going to need to learn that at some point.
Great. Is it
Did you sign up for Xiaohongshu?
Not yet, but I also wasn't signed up to TikTok really either, so I don't need that replacement. We might talk about some other things I'm going to need replacements for down the road.
I feel like there are a lot of people out there dabbling with learning Mandarin right now.
Well, I have someone in the house that can help me out, but it is going to be specific to the Shanghaiese dialect.
All right. That it for the games?
I think so.
All right, we're going to take another break here. We'll come back. We'll have the news. Stick around. We are back. And I don't know in what kind of world we live in today. I do. I'm could write it down on a napkin and slip it to me next time we are at dinner. I won't reveal it to anyone.
I can reveal it here. I can tell you right now. The world. What kind of world we live in.
What is it?
It's a suck-ass one.
Well, it may be a suck-ass one. You know what? Yeah, sure. Suck ass one. Because I was just gonna say there's another version of this world. I don't know where it's splintered, where we got a Nintendo console announcement, and that's kind of all we talked about, and it's where we led the podcast, and it's what we started with, and it's what I came in here on Monday and was like, remember that? And then Tuesday I was like, can't wait to talk about that. And then Wednesday I was like, yeah, let's lead with the new Nintendo console announcement. But here we are. It's Wednesday. I don't know, less than a week after this announcement, and I had forgotten that this thing even got announced.
What kind of world are we living in? The announcement of a new Nintendo Switch is like the least interesting thing on the news docket this week. I mean, it's just the leaks, right? If it hadn't been for leaks, this would be like enormous. It still is enormous, but
it's still big,
but
also
nothing surprising at all about it.
Yeah. I don't know if it is just the leaks. I don't know. Well, okay. Brad, you called it. Elsa, you kind of nailed it by the time we got to the actual reveal that, hey, this is just going to be a teaser, right? Like don't expect big blowout game list, and this will be a hardware teaser, which it kind of was.
Yeah. And I mean, I was just basing that 100% on how they announced the previous Switch, which seems like they're more or less doing the same thing here, although not so much a lifestyle video this time.
No.
Of people on a roof.
Nobody has a lifestyle anymore.
That's right.
Why.
Nobody has friends or leaves the house anymore.
But it was more of a kind of product video, in a stylish product video. We went over it a little bit on Thursday before we streamed.
Yeah, we watched it. I was like slickly produced. I think it does a pretty good job of showing how much bigger it is, like the little, the cutesy little, like seeing it grow in size, like Grinch style.
Yeah.
Was like a nice way to say, okay, I can see how much bigger it is here. Seeing how the Joy-Cons stick on, like the way they animate them makes it really clear, the magnetism kind of stuff, you know.
It's more of a clap than a snap.
Yeah.
And you know, really, some Mario Kart was the software that they showed.
New Mario Kart.
The Kart.
4.5 seconds of Mario Kart that they showed.
They showed the Joy-Cons and didn't kind of go into any explicit detail on anything really, but they showed the Joy-Cons scooting around on their sensors.
Fucking built-in mouse.
Yeah.
Is so rad.
Yeah. Time for bring SimCity back. What do you think? One of you mentioned it, Mario Paint.
Yeah. Like, but people seem stoked about that. I saw people saying like, oh, maybe they'll port Civ 7 to the Switch and I can play it with a mouse like that. I mean, they could adapt a controller interface anyway, and they probably will, but still the option to just pop a thing off and use it like a mouse, pretty cool.
I'm still not 100% sure. Like, am I using this on my knee? Am I using this on a surface? Like, what do I need to do here?
I don't know. I mean, and also it looks like it takes an add-on. I'm sure that's free. It comes with, but seems like, you know how the existing Joy-Cons have the little shroud that slides over the top to make them a better controller,
and put those straps on.
Yeah, so it seems like you might have to pop that little thing on there to make it work properly like a mouse.
Really, but the leaks did deflate a lot of this because we kind of knew a lot of it already.
The vast majority, I might say.
Maybe even more than they revealed in their official reveal.
Mm-hmm.
Was there anything else from here that you thought was, I don't know, revelatory?
Not really. I mean, like you said, like zero surprises in the feature set here. I like the look of it.
Yeah.
Although I think we even knew the look more or less by the time.
You're talking about the color scheme, or
like I feel like I had seen the color scheme by the time this dropped. I can't remember. Did any mock-ups have this?
I thought they were mostly like the white plastic prototype.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe it came to me in a dream or something. But I like the inversion of the color scheme. I've said this like 3 times since this reveal in different places now, but I really thought the like red and blue Joy-Cons at launch last time looked a bit too toy-like. So I think moving the color to these little accents is kind of a cool way to go.
So you think you'll just buy different Joy-Cons with little accents on them? Like,
I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they still sell fully colored ones optionally for people.
I guess one of the would-be pieces of information we got from this was the next time we'll hear about the
man, what the fuck? Yeah. 3 months until we hear any more about games and price and stuff.
You think the leaks stop?
3 months?
Or you think we get...
No, probably not. Well, I don't know. It depends. Like these types of leaks were able to come out of supply chain and accessory makers and people that need to assist with building the hardware or make things for the hardware. Like software is probably a lot easier to keep a lid on.
How about price?
Probably that would mostly come out of retail partner type stuff.
We'll get a lot of rumor and maybe maybe a listing somewhere. And somebody takes
I bet we'll have a decent idea of what it's going to cost by the time it happens. I'm still guessing $399.
Okay.
Yeah, that's about where I would probably put it.
That's not bad. I was thinking $450, but like $399 seems
going above $399 seems a little risky, but I don't know.
Yeah. We saw some of the dock here, but nothing really to write home about.
It's a dock.
It seems like it's docked.
I mean, I didn't know if there would be any major change to the design. There's not really. You know what I want to know about the dock is it backwards compatible?
Can you drop your old Switch in there?
Yes. Can you put your old Switch in that dock and have it work just the same? Because there's going to be a lot of households out there with multiple Switches after this thing comes out.
I'm going to say
it would be nice to not have to hook up two docks.
Well, it's just USB-C, right? In that thing?
Yeah, but they do weird non-standard stuff with the power and the display out. I mean, there's no reason they couldn't make it backwards compatible, but it's
Nintendo.
Yep.
It's Nintendo.
Sure is.
So yeah, not too much there, but in a week, it's just I feel like it kind of fell off.
I mean, I'm very excited about it. To be clear, I think this looks great.
I'm less excited, but like once the software starts coming out, I'm sure my excitement will come back up. I'm just not a huge Switch guy.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been for a while just because it's gotten so long in the tooth and so much stuff runs like crap on it. So that's the whole point here is, hey, bigger screen because I'm getting old and I can't straight up the size of the launch Switch screen that I have is kind of problematic for me at this point, unfortunately, with the state of my eyes. So a bigger screen is welcome. Obviously, it's going to be way more powerful. Like, might be down to go back to playing some indie games on the Switch again instead of other places.
Hopefully battery life holds up.
Yeah, hopefully the battery life is good.
Yeah, well, a lot of TBD for the details.
I felt like I was losing my mind over the weekend, though, watching the discourse around people who are like, oh, it's so disappointing. Like, where is creative, innovative Nintendo? Like, it's just a better Switch. Like, yeah, man, Switch is damn near the most successful console ever released at this point.
Yeah.
Of course it is a better one of those.
And look, here's the thing. I love it when Nintendo does something weird and wacky that, at least they think is going to innovate, even if it doesn't necessarily pull it off. Like, I enjoy that aspect of Nintendo, but let's be real. After the Wii U, they found the golden fucking goose. There is absolutely no reason for them to reinvent the golden goose until that golden goose stops selling.
Like 100%. Like, this is the same company that, arguably in the running for best console ever made, the Super NES, just a better NES.
Yeah.
Like the Game Boy Advance, just a better Game Boy.
As long as the games are there, no one's going to give a shit in like a month after the thing comes out.
Like Nintendo absolutely trades in innovation and gimmicks frequently, but when they find one that works, they stick with it. Like that's their thing. Like they go back to the well when they need something new, and right now they absolutely do not need something new. Like, in fact, I kept mentally if I were the type of person to still write long Twitter threads, I was like resisting the urge to catalog every quote unquote innovation they've ever come up with, because like half of them have fallen on their face.
Yeah.
Virtual Boy, Wii U. There's another one I'm not thinking of right now. Help me out.
Would you call Labo a success?
That one, no. I mean, it kind of came and went. I mean, that was not a huge bet for them, though, not in the way that a console is. There was another big one I'm trying to think of, besides Virtual Boy and Wii U.
Oh, like big console bets?
Yeah, like console, or like feature that they built a console around.
The finger vitality sensor. Where's my vitality sensor?
Yeah, I mean, that was easy to just kind of sweep under the rug, but like, I'm talking consoles that straight up failed, Like GameCube was not innovative in the same way, but it was obviously a pretty big disappointment. Like N64, I think the analog and rumble on the N64 were ahead of their time and absolutely were the thing, but it did not help that console,
No, but at the same time, they were at least given a little bit of cover in that one by how far Sega had fallen down the rung and was flailing during that generation. So the fact that they were kind of, losing ground to the CD-ROM era, was a little bit obfuscated by the fact that Sega just was fucking everything up.
Right. Yeah. But the bigger point is that I think that they've got kind of a pretty even success fail rates with their quote unquote innovations.
I would actually say that maybe even slightly higher on the side of them pulling it off.
But like the Switch gimmick is like, it's not even a gimmick. It's so good. It transcends the state of being a gimmick, right? It's just
so good. Now a bunch of other hardware makers are doing their versions of it.
Like that's the thing to me more than anything is like the console that becomes a handheld that can go back and forth to TV and whatever is like, it's not even a cottage industry of imitators now. Like it practically is the industry.
Yeah.
Like that's practically just where everything is going now.
And I think the thing that the Switch really had to resolve was it feeling underpowered, and hopefully we're getting a slightly more powered, but not
Look,
not competitive in the way some of those other ones are. But
I'm not expecting the moon here.
No.
I'm expecting a reasonably powerful console for that handheld form factor.
Yeah, like people have, I think the ballpark estimates are still fairly accurate from all the information that's available of somewhere in the PS4 to PS4 Pro range in terms of power.
Mm-hmm.
And like granted, Tears of the Kingdom was like kind of struggling on that hardware by the end, but if they could do Tears of the Kingdom on the Switch 1, like imagine what they'll pull off on this,
Yeah. I'm looking forward to the 7 to 8 games I really love on the Switch 2. I mean, that's kind of where I fall on Nintendo things now. Mostly first party or really, really amazing exclusives. But the thing is, when they connect, they really hit that thing out of the park. So that's Nintendo's whole thing is, right? Like it's just their software and their design is usually very, very leagues beyond.
Well, again, it's the thing that draws you to those platforms more than anything else.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked on the Volgar stream a little bit on Friday with Patrick about it. I don't know where all the rumors about a 3D Mario are coming from, but he reminded me of Bowser's Fury, which I feel dumb for forgetting Bowser's Fury happened.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, it was not a full game. It was like kind of an add-on to a re-release, but I keep thinking of Odyssey as the last proper 3D Mario, but like they were starting to experiment with Mario in the same way they did with Zelda, and so new hardware and a potentially like radically new Mario design
could be cool.
Maybe this holiday, like that's super exciting.
That's pretty exciting. Switch 2, we'll find out more in months here. But what is happening now is, you can, if you're tuning in the United States, we've got a lot of political drama going on. We've got new presidents. We've got a lot of possible executive orders coming out, which means we've got some big talk. And one of those talks that is being floated around are tariffs on everybody.
Dude, what the fuck is this? I've still got this CNN story open at the top of the page, right next to their stock ticker. This is like a little built-in unit. It's not part of the story. It's just something that like they surface on every page. There's a little needle, like the little electoral needle, like speedometer looking thing.
But
it's labeled the Fear and Greed Index.
What does that mean?
Currently, we are at a 43 fear rating.
Out of what?
Fear is driving the U.S. market currently, not greed. Is like,
what does that mean?
I don't understand where this is. What emotion is driving the market now?
I mean, look, we all know the market is inherently tied to rich people feelings. No one is surprised by that. But how are you quantifying that?
Right. Like, how are you saying the quiet part this loudly? If you click through, you get a bigger version of the gauge that's got 5 segments. On the far left, extreme fear. On the right, extreme greed. Those are the two. Like,
fuck off.
Fuck. I mean, I think you're not wrong. Those absolutely are the two animating principles in American politics.
Well,
we don't need a needle for it.
No, we don't need a needle to see my extreme fear. How about my extreme greed? My neutral fear, my neutral greed. Well, the reason we're bringing this up in the news section here, aside from our extreme,
let's just say the extremely dyspeptic feelings I'm having about all of this,
is that these tariffs, if and when, and a big if there, if they were to be implemented, would certainly affect the manufacturing and cost of things coming into the United States in and around related to video games.
Yeah, probably not relevant to people outside the U.S., although maybe, who knows? I mean, costs, third order effects, externalities, whatever you call them, like ripple effects could certainly affect other countries if this goes into effect.
And let's be clear, we're not saying that all of this stuff that we're about to describe is actually going to happen and be executed the way that, it is being laid out. But because it is being floated this way, we are forced to entertain the idea that they might happen.
Yeah, it's just worth mentioning, and we have no idea what the numbers would be or what the associated cost increases would be. A month ago, they were saying that it would have already happened by now, this past Monday, day one. Yeah. Now they are currently saying February 1st. They could never happen. Also, the percentages are going up and down. It was way higher a month ago, and now they have come down somewhat.
Well, maybe if there was some kind of needle that could track all this for us. I don't know.
I think it's very hard, and one of the things that's maddening, one of the least thing, I don't know, maybe of consequence, is that there's so much bluster, it's hard to just know what's going to connect and what's not, right? So but because this could happen, because we are under the madman theory now, that people are writing articles about, hey, do you want to understand what this could mean? And there's some stuff I learned in here from some of these articles about what had exemptions from tariffs previously, what we're talking about now, and what that could mean, and what tariffs on large tariffs on Mexico and Canada could mean in terms of relating to video games.
Yeah, the upshot is video game products could get noticeably more expensive in the very short term if this goes into effect in 2 weeks or whatever, like they're threatening. Currently, they're only saying a 10% tariff on Chinese goods, which is way down from, weren't they talking 50% a month or two ago, I think.
It's hard for me to keep track.
If I remember, I could be wrong about that. Anyway, I looked around a little bit. We are not experts here. We don't need to spend too much time on this. Traditionally, obviously, a lot of console manufacturing has been done in China. I think that's still largely the case, although I did find a quote from an analyst that apparently Nintendo has moved a lot of its manufacturing to other countries that are less subject to tariffs at the moment. It seems like this is one data point. I looked around. It seems like most of the PS5 Pros for sale right now are made in China, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So that is something that would potentially be subject to that sort of thing. We really don't know right now, but just something to be aware of if you were thinking about a new console.
Yeah.
Maybe go ahead and get it immediately.
Well, again, who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, we're not here to tell you definitively how this is going to pan out, but it's just there are things to be aware of, going forward if this stuff does pan out.
Yeah, but the Chinese tariffs feel like they're kind of fuzzy in terms of how much they're being talked about right now. It feels like this 25% tariff on Canada and Mexico feels a lot more firm right now in terms of
as much as anything, really,
rhetoric around it and stuff. Yeah. Anyway, the main reason I even wanted to bring this subject up is that Matt Piscatella, who's a Circana analyst that I quote frequently, had an interesting thread on Blue Sky. I think he's talked about this before, but this was just a nice little encapsulation of it. With 25% tariffs on imports from Mexico on the way, I can see a sharp downtick in the number of disc-based games that get released physically in the U.S., as much of that production infrastructure is in Mexico. If they do get made, I expect higher prices, both physical and digital, which I 100% agree with that, just based on the way that pandemic price inflation went.
Yeah.
And companies were just raising prices as much as they could in every respect. He says, I would anticipate digital MSRPs to increase to remain at price parity with physical, but who knows? In any case, none of this is good for the physical video game market.
Which has been struggling as it is.
Yeah, actually, sorry.
Sputtering out, frankly.
He goes on, he kind of floats a question. Can't that production just be moved to the U.S.? He says, with significant investment, sure, but annual U.S. physical video game spending is now half what it was in 2021 and declining rapidly. So yeah,
there's just no reason to think that will change.
Are they going to spin up production in another country to get around this, or just kill it off?
I think more often, it'll be kill it off.
Not hard to guess.
Or raise the prices in a way that essentially kills it off. Yeah, it's somebody asked in that thread too, or makes a comment about Blu-ray production, which there's no official response to in there. I don't know if those are also have a large manufacturing base in Mexico.
I'm not sure where. Blu-rays are not even that common generally these days.
Well,
I'm not sure where those are made.
If I had to guess, I would say that probably the physical movie market is still a little bit more active than the physical video game market at this time. Like, obviously, movies don't cost nearly as much, and you still see dedicated shelf space to those in a lot of stores, but maybe you wouldn't see video games now. But that said, that market has also been in decline for some time and is mostly the space for like serious collectors and not just like the average person. So I think anything that like would be affecting video games this way will absolutely inevitably have a knock-on effect of affecting any kind of physical disc market, no matter what.
And so, again, Brad said it. We are not experts. This is an opinion. Like, could this be wrong? Absolutely.
None of this stuff could come to pass. That's the thing. All this stuff could just completely dissipate within a week, or it could be 10 times worse than we even think it is. No one has any fucking idea.
Yeah, or the manufacturing could come from somewhere else. Like maybe there are other places where it can come from. I really don't know. It's just one of those things that is this cloud just circling. And look, this is video games, and that's what we're here to talk about. It's part of bigger, more thunderous clouds that feel like they're circling. So yeah, keep an eye on it, I guess.
Yeah.
Or if your shit gets more expensive, you don't have to be happy about it. But if you're in the States here, act accordingly.
Yeah.
You know who to point the fingers at.
Us.
Don't point them at us.
That was our
We're
fault.
the ones doing it.
No, we didn't do it.
And it really would be wild if this. I mean, this is not the thing that's going to kill off physical games forever. But if this really drove a nail in the coffin, that would be pretty wild.
It's an accelerant, if nothing else.
Yeah. Right.
Well. Other things that are maybe related to the cloud, or to the storm cloud, I should say. The cloud has a very particular meaning to the hovering storm cloud of like, what is going on? Nobody really knows.
No one really knows.
Marvel Snap went down.
Oh my God, dude. Okay. So I sort of remembered that ByteDance had some kind of something to do with Marvel Snap, but I can't say I ever paid that close of attention to it because it's a mobile game, and it's just a thing I play in my idle hours, and I'm never really thinking about it that hard. But on the day when all the stuff from TikTok going offline and then putting up that message and saying like, it is temporarily unavailable in the US, really did not see Marvel Snap getting a similar thing that instant. As soon as I booted up the game, and I was just like, hey, this isn't working. What's going on here? That was when it all came flooding back to me. There's like, oh, right, ByteDance has something to do with this. And yes, what it had to do with was at least at one time, they were the publisher of that game.
So it is now back up.
It is. It came up slower than TikTok did. There was like another, I'd say, 18 hours or so after TikTok basically became widely available again, that between then and when Marvel Snap came up. But so the really wild thing about this particular branch of this really shitty tree is that apparently the developer of the game, Second Dinner, had no idea this was going to happen.
Yeah, that is bananas.
That is bananas.
Like, that's a level of basic transparency you would expect from, the company publishing your video game to give you with a little bit of heads up at least. But no, they were completely caught off guard by this. And so after the game went back up, they posted this on the official Second Dinner Twitter account. Marvel Snap is back online in the US, but to make sure this never happens again, we're working to bring more services in-house and partner with a new publisher. This is the start of a new era for Marvel Snap. We know this probably leaves you with even more questions than answers. We appreciate your patience, but in the meantime, enjoy playing Marvel Snap.
That's what I'm going to do.
I mean, I do still play Marvel Snap. I enjoy Marvel Snap.
Yeah.
I really did not peg this mobile CCG getting wrapped up in the negotiations between China and the United States government.
Yeah, it was in the news so much as a quote unquote TikTok ban. I did not realize it was like literally everything ByteDance had ever touched.
Yeah.
It's wild, man. I don't know.
It really feels like they just ended up a pawn in the middle of all this other bullshit.
Did it get a message that thanked Donald Trump for saving?
No.
No? Okay.
No, they did not get the same thankful message that I believe TikTok got about President Trump assuaging their fears. It did mention that they were in ongoing negotiations with the U.S. government to bring it back or whatever, but I think that was it. But yeah, this just feels like a thing that got completely roped up into this thing that had absolutely nothing to do with the people actually making this game, and they were just left scrambling.
That is wild. But it is back up now.
Yeah.
And they're looking to secure more domestic means, let's say, of
I don't think they'll have a lot of trouble. It's one of the, I think, most profitable ongoing mobile games right now and is doing very well as far as I'm aware. So I'm sure they will find another publisher that will be eager to help them out. I just don't know what it's going to take for them to untangle themselves from whatever ByteDance related things they had.
Yeah, that was kind of the aside from the kind of part that you guys just mentioned about not knowing that this was going to happen, the other part that was surprising to me was I wouldn't call it cavalier, but their messaging kind of being like, "Hey, we're finding another publisher." Like, I didn't. Can you do that? I thought those things were always super hard to do.
This is
to untangle yourself.
Yeah. So this is pure speculation on my part. This is not rooted in any knowledge, but I will just say everything about their statement has a real like breach of motherfucking contract feel to it. Of like, hey, you not giving us a heads up and just taking our game down for X number of hours without even like so much as a courtesy call. Yeah. That might have something to do with some kind of breach language in a contract. But again, I don't have any inside knowledge about anything related to that.
You think Second Dinner has access to Disney lawyers?
I would think at the very least, Disney lawyers would be eager to divest them from whatever this bullshit is so they can continue making money hand over fist on that thing.
Yeah, is that thing still huge, I assume?
It's big. I don't know if it's still like the biggest thing, but it is still extremely popular game.
All right. Welcome back.
Fucking
Marvel
crazy,
Snap.
man.
Okay.
Fucking crazy.
On a slightly less bananas notes. Slightly less, but not encouraging. The Sony news, Brad.
Pretty bananas.
What is encouraging?
I mean, the top line here, I had to laugh when I read Jason Schreier's tweet. He of Bloomberg, he reported last week that Sony has canceled another 2 live service games. But when I saw his tweet and I read it and I saw, they've canceled live service games at Ben Studio and Bluepoint. I knew what was coming next because I heard about this about a year ago. And he said at the bottom of the tweet, he said, I can report that Bluepoint was working on a God of War live service game.
Which, what are we doing?
What are we, folks?
What are we doing?
Which, so again, I heard about, I think it was about a year ago that I heard that the way it was put to me, I think it was an online God of War game is what Bluepoint was working on. Which is mostly notable. I mean, it's notable for 2 reasons, but one of them is pretty old hat at this point. Sony is slashing and burning their live service lineup.
Oh, yeah.
After the failure of Concord and with Jim Ryan out the door and blah, blah, blah.
The whole like Jim Ryan regime's projects that were still in the works feels like they are just going left and right.
But also the industry at large is just realizing that the live service land grab has ended.
Oh, I'm not saying it's not because of a good reason, which is that the things that he threw money into and resources into are not bearing out. But still, it's just like, it does feel like this was like kind of his big push and that is done.
Right. But it was the Bluepoint thing was the thing that I was like, I immediately had to go look for, like I knew that would be trending on social media and stuff because, mainly because a certain segment of the audience out there saw what Bluepoint did with the Demon's Souls remaster and basically has worked themselves into being convinced that the next thing from them would be a Bloodborne remaster.
Mm-hmm.
The response of people finding out they were not working on a Bloodborne remaster, but in fact a live service God of War game.
Yeah, I didn't say it was vicious.
And they weren't happy.
They were
not happy.
It was rough.
All right, look, I would never try to diminish the work of hardworking developers out there who are working on things. But like, maybe put this in the bucket of like, I don't think this was a thing anybody was asking for.
Probably not.
Not even remotely. Not even remotely.
Probably not.
I don't think I've ever heard somebody be like, you know what's fucking awesome? Those new God of Wars. And you know what they would be awesome? If I could get online and God of War it up with a bunch of people.
Hey, they got loot in them.
Well,
you could see how that might work.
It's like, but the loot in God of War is not like loot. Loot in God of War is it's like kind of fixed loot.
Look, if they are putting color coding on it,
okay, fair enough.
It is adaptable to a life service environment.
Yeah. All right, sure, yes, you're right. There is color coded loot and gems and socketed gems,
dude. Fuck, the business plan writes itself.
And I mean, wouldn't the experience of God of War be greatly improved by someone with an extremely buzzy microphone saying slurs into your ear over and over again? Wouldn't that really just make God of War finally complete?
Yeah, I mean, I am absolutely not here to denigrate the work they were doing. It could have been very cool. We have no way of knowing.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. When you just read that description to somebody and say, is that something you're interested in?
Fairly fucking baffling.
I mean, there's a reason they canceled it, obviously.
Yeah. So it is wild, a bit. Not wild. Wild's not the right word. It is interesting to see Sony try to, reform like water around a new strategy as they cut their live service projects and try to figure out what's going on with Bungie and recover from geez, oh my god, the name just flew out of my head.
Jim Ryan.
No, not recover from Jim Ryan. Nobody recovers from that.
Yeah, talking about Concord.
Yeah, Concord. Sorry, I was for some reason Condor. Project Condor was in my head. Concord. When Helldivers 2 did very well.
Yeah.
And like maybe. Do you think they still look at that as like we never thought it would do that well? This was kind of
no one did.
Yeah, so like, but in Sony. Inside Sony, that has to be one of their most successful online things going, right? Like
I'm still not convinced Sony actually knows what they have there.
And I don't want to get into the reading the Steam concurrent game of like, oh, this game's dying or whatever. I mean, the numbers are obviously way down from where they were at launch.
Mm-hmm.
They had a couple of missteps there that didn't help with
Did they come back up after their
No, I mean, I think it's settled at a much more reasonable place.
Okay.
I don't think it's anywhere near the number 4 on Steam that it peaked at or whatever. But also remember, Helldivers and Concord were 6 months apart. So,
yeah.
They had a huge surprise success and a overwhelming failure right next to each other.
I know but yeah, and I mean you're absolutely right too. Like Helldivers is the exception, not the rule, right? This market is saturated. People are tired.
There will be one of those, but there will be about 10 of those that fail for every one of those.
Yeah, the writing absolutely was on the wall for this strategy being a dead end before Helldivers even came out.
Right. Yes. So with Sony kind of figuring it out and Bluepoint basically not doing or not doing a God of War live service game.
I get being disappointed on one hand. On the other hand, I feel like it's kind of shitty to pigeonhole Bluepoint as a studio that can only apparently remaster other people's games.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's what they were known for, but that's the whole point of them buying them, wasn't it? So that they could work on other projects too.
Yeah, they did the Shadow of the Colossus remaster, and then they did the Demon Souls ones, and those turned out quite well generally. But maybe they want to make their own game. Maybe they want to make an original game. Maybe they don't want to remaster games forever. People just kind of insisting that they have to. I mean, people just really want a modern Bloodborne.
Yeah,
which I get, but Bluepoint doesn't necessarily have to be caught up in that mess necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Brad, you've linked another story here, kind of about Bloodborne, and maybe I don't know when I missed this, but I didn't know Shu had left.
Yeah, that was actually fairly recent.
Yeah, Shuhei Yoshida. Well, he announced months ago that he was going to leave Sony, but he just left. I think last week finally.
Okay.
Longtime PlayStation executive. I'm not sure what his position was by the time he left.
He was definitely not in the spotlight anymore.
Not so much, no.
Yeah.
No, there had definitely been some shuffling around of personnel around Worldwide Studios for sure. Anyway, I probably wouldn't have even put this in the news if it hadn't been for the other bigger Bluepoint story, and this isn't even really technically a Bluepoint story, but Kind of Funny did an interview with him right after he was out the door at Sony. He gave what he thinks is, or what is his theory for why Bloodborne has not been remastered.
Mm-hmm.
Which is essentially that he thinks that Miyazaki at From would like to spearhead it himself, like that he cares enough that he wouldn't want another company to take it on, but he's too busy with other projects. And
so something will have to give there.
So it's just kind of in a state of limbo, because if it were to happen, he would probably want to do it himself. That's Yoshida's theory.
Right.
He explicitly says, that's my guess. In theory, I'm not revealing any secret information.
Right. I guess the other thing there is like, not a surprise, but acknowledging the demand for a Bloodborne remake.
It would be kind of insane not to.
Yeah. I mean, Miyazaki himself has spoken on that in the past about realizing how much people want it.
Yeah. I'm not even the biggest Bloodborne fan. I'd kind of like to see it because maybe it would get me to jump back into
I think Bloodborne. It deserves it as much as any of these other games that have been getting remakes.
Does it sound shitty to say I wish they would do it just so we could stop hearing about it?
No, that's. I don't think that's shitty. I think it comes from a place of just being exhausted with the conversation. It's been going on for so long now.
It's been going on since before the PS5 came out that people have been like screaming for a Bloodborne.
Oh, you mean the old Metroid defense? Just do it so we don't have to hear about it anymore. Maybe that's. I'm not hearing a no. So maybe in the future.
Yeah.
PS5 Pro Bloodborne. We were going to mention something else. Is it Ted Price?
Yeah,
Ted Price is.
Speaking of a bunch of Sony news, Ted Price is retiring from Insomniac.
Yes.
After 31? Is it 31 years? Over 30?
Forever,
I think. Well, he's a founder of the studio, so.
Yeah.
Or a founder.
Do you know the person who's taken over?
I don't
know people.
No. Oh, did they announce somebody was taking over? I did not see that.
I think in the announcement they had. I thought their succession plan was in there.
Don't think I'm familiar with any of the people they have named here.
Okay.
They've got 3 people serving as co-studio heads in the interim.
Insomniac.
End of an era.
Yeah.
Insomniac, huge, important Sony developer.
What's their next? Do they have a 2025 or is their next?
Yeah, Wolverine.
Is that 2025 still?
I'm pretty sure they said it was.
Okay.
But can't remember the next thing, I believe.
Yeah,
because that was like announced in like 2023, right? For like 2025. I feel like it was like so far away. It always just feels like multiple years away. All right. I think that's it for the news.
Oh, actually, I don't think they ever did say when that's coming out.
Oh.
Gosh, here's a story on GameSpot from today.
Oh, look at that, timely. Well, it's probably the Insomniac news.
Looks like they are refusing. There are rumors that Wolverine will be out this year, and Insomniac declined to confirm them. Is basically the non-story here. Only
Ted Price knows.
Yep.
That's going to do it for the news. What news? What a time. We've got an email address. That email address is podcast@nextlander.com. Podcast@nextlander.com. Brad Shoemaker, we got an email or two in there.
Let's read one here for Alex.
All right.
Okay. This is actionable information. Eddie from Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
I bought myself an electronic drum set for Christmas this year, an Alesis Nitro Mesh.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a lot of fun trying to learn a few songs. I was wondering if Alex had any advice for increasing hand speed and developing limb independence. Also, will the hand cramping and soreness go away as I play more?
So on the last point, yes. I mean, there's, especially depending on how hard you play, there will always be a degree of hand pain and soreness, but that will go away as you build muscle and sort of just get used to the general rigors of playing. So, don't get discouraged by that by any stretch. As far as learning how to do things like, greater limb independence, like improving speed and technique with your hands and your feet and whatnot, there are millions of tutorials out there, on YouTube and elsewhere from, I would say actually like reasonably talented people that know what they're talking about that you can find that can give you any number of good exercises that you can use to learn to build that stuff. The main thing I would do as a new player, if I were learning how to play now, knowing what I know, is that set aside at least 15 minutes every day. Get yourself a little practice pad, like just a rubber one that you can set up with a stand and, just sit there and bang on somewhere. And then just do some basic rudiments, just sit there and just like, do some hits with the right hand, do some hits with the left hand, start alternating, learning how to just kind of, like try some different techniques. Just do that on that pad for like 10 to 15 minutes a day for a while until you build up some strength and get a feel for the sticks. That's what I should have been doing when I was young and I was learning, and I got very cavalier about not practicing the way I should. And I wish I had spent way more time working on fundamentals, because that's stuff that I still occasionally struggle with today as an adult, because I just never really trained myself up on it the right way. And as far as Limb of Independence goes, just also start doing some of that stuff with your feet. Just grab yourself, like a little practice, hit like beater, or, just bring your kick pedal over and just sort of like, take the beater off and just sort of like step on it in time. You just have to learn to do it. You just have to keep doing it and keep drilling on it. And that comes over time, because I did not start out drumming with any limb independence whatsoever. I could never make my left foot do stuff independent of my right foot in a way that was comfortable. You just keep doing it until it starts to feel natural.
How are your paradiddles?
Not as good as they should be, but I can do them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I spent more time practicing those fundamentals, I'd probably be a lot better.
I never thought about the soreness as building up muscles, kind of like the drum version of building up calluses on guitar.
Yeah, I mean, you will also get calluses from drumming. Like, you will get blisters on your hands, especially if you start playing really hard and really fast. But, it's just, a lot of it is in the forearm and the wrist and kind of, up through there with the legs. It's a lot of calf muscle. But over time, you will develop it.
I would say a thing that you told me once, Alex, that I asked you, because I used to get like really bad shin splints when playing, was keeping, was it, I think it was
foot down.
Foot down.
Foot down.
Yeah. No, because I used
raise
to just keep
it
it
when
up.
you want to do the hit.
Yeah.
Don't sit there with your leg raised and then stomp down, because that is how you tire your legs out really fast. Yes,
and also that's where I would get like shin splints.
Yeah,
which sucked. So another tip: keep that foot down,
and
always
don't be
keep
afraid.
The pedal down.
Don't be afraid to take lessons if you feel like you're not developing right. Like, there are, I guarantee you, there's a drum teacher out there somewhere that can show you some stuff, even if it isn't like a long-term thing. A handful of months of lessons will at least get you on the right path.
I'm just going to throw this out there in a really self-serving way. If I can use this podcast for my own purposes. I am back yet again to telling myself I'm going to try to start learning the piano.
There you go.
So if either of you or anybody listening has any recommendations for books or apps or whatever to start with, I'm all ears.
No, that's a nerd instrument. I don't play it.
There are a lot of apps out there.
There are a lot of
them.
There are a great many ways to learn as well. Again, I don't know anything about that stuff. My aunt plays piano, but I don't know anything about it.
I just had my wife constantly tell me, "You're murdering this song. Please stop."
Great.
Over and over again. Please never play the piano in front of me again. Until eventually she stopped saying that. And I guess that means I got a serviceable.
Yeah.
Serviceable.
I think I need something that maybe starts with like a little more tactile, a little more hands-on before it gets to reading music and theory.
I could send you my kids' books.
Well, I would not be opposed to that. The one book I got is extremely heavy on, you need to learn to read music before you do anything else, which is not a great way to learn. I mean, I could read the bass clef in junior high a million years ago. Got a little bit of experience there, but
that's what my kids' books are, by the way. They're definitely read the music before you do anything else.
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't have one of those little Rock Band 3 keyboard controllers, do you?
I don't.
Okay. I've heard a lot of people learning just using those things and plugging in via the MIDI, out on that thing.
I've got a nice keyboard. I just don't use it.
All right. Well, then you're already like ahead of the game there.
Yeah. I mean, not nice. I mean, it's a decent little entry level Casio.
It is keys you can touch. That's what you need.
What kind of piano are you thinking about playing? Like, what
style?
Kind of music?
Oh, I don't know.
Like anything. Classical, jazz.
I just want something to zone out on and noodle.
Okay.
Honestly, any and all.
I suck at classical. I could bang out dumb jazz chords. Okay.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I'm not looking to learn pieces as such.
Okay.
And play them so much as I just want some general knowledge that I can sit there and fiddle around with chord progressions and whatever.
I'll tell you, because I feel like you and I are probably in a similar thing, having come from stringed instruments. When I started learning piano a bit, everything made so much more sense on the piano.
That is the other reason, is that like, you know what? Here's all the fucking notes. Like, here is, if I actually did care about theory, which I'm not sure I do, like there is no better venue to understand it than really just putting all of the goddamn notes in front of you, right?
Well, not only all the notes, but in a linear order as opposed to the guitar where they jump strings. You're like, oh, that's why you're raising a fifth.
Okay.
It's
this
right here.
This half step makes extreme sense because it's half a key.
Yeah, right, exactly. Right. Instead of like when you're jumping strings or just doing weird chord patterns on a guitar.
Yep.
So yeah, I got into theory a little bit after I started playing. I'm by no means a pianist at all. I just I can mash my way through stuff, but like it's fun and it makes more sense. It's just everything makes more sense.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Thank you. I kind of look at it the way a lot of people like paint or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
I just want something I'm good enough at to just sit down and screw around with it for 30 minutes a day and just kind of like let my mind go blank.
Go play Yesterday. I feel like that's a song that is pretty fun to play on piano. You probably know already, and I don't think the chords are that hard. Is my 2 cents. I'm sure other people have better things. All right, that's the emails, and that's going to pretty much do it for the show. It is cold and dark in this garage now. I've had the heat off. I probably should have turned it back on at some point. I should go check what the temperature is. But it is warming up here in the old Nextlander studios. We've got the end. We're nearing the end of our Jude Law sci-fi January. We have one more movie to record, which is Gattaca, which I'll be watching tonight.
Same.
Very hopeful for that. But we have finished AI, a monstrous episode to discuss AI.
Yeah,
I think our episode ended up being longer than the blank check episode on that movie.
By far the longest one we've done, like 3 hours almost.
I don't know if that is the actual longest. That first Batman one was really long too.
I mean, there was a lot to talk about in there. Hang
on, I can verify this. I have all the files. I can just look at the length. Yeah, so Twin Peaks season 2 finale, and it is the longest actually at 3:07.
Oh wow!
Oh, by a hair. Okay.
AI is just a hair above Batman.
Okay.
All right, that's fair.
So it is the second longest episode we've ever done.
I listened to the AI, the blank check AI episode after we did ours and felt somewhat vindicated.
Did they address a lot of stuff that we went over too?
Yeah, not really.
Okay.
It's a fairly different episode.
Yeah.
Well, that'll wrap up our stuff, and I assume I'm leaving this dangling there. I assume we will have what we're doing next at the end of Gattaca.
I think we have an idea. We just need to solidify it so we can announce it on next week's show. But yeah, I think we know what we're gonna do.
Very fun. And I'm looking forward to checking out Gattaca, and you should be looking forward to rewatching it or watching it for the first time and joining along with us. That'll be over on the Patreon next week. That's next week's Gattaca is next week's Watchcast movie. Let's see what else is going on. Brad, you're doing a little streaming on Thursday.
Yep.
And then Friday we're getting back together. We have to sort that out too. We gotta nail that down. I've been talking with one Mike Mahardy from Fire Escape. We've been kicking around some ideas to try and do a joint Fire Escape Nextlander venture. One of the things we've been talking about is maybe, Mahardy really loves that Total Warhammer game.
No,
he's like, no,
I thought he only played Warframe.
I think when he can't play Warframe, he plays War, or maybe he just gets confused and thinks he's booting up Warframe and boots up Warhammer. He loves it, and he wants to take me through some Warhammer Online. So we've been trying to figure out a series there, one that'll probably be back and forth, and trying to figure out something to do they've got their Patreon there for the patrons. So we're trying to figure out a series that'll probably be on both of our patrons in some form or another. We're looking to get something going there in February. Once we get it all sorted out. There was something else I was going to bring up, and now it has escaped my head.
It couldn't have been important then.
No, nothing is. Like I said, we've got Ramblecast Watch. I didn't say the Ramblecast.
We do have a Ramblecast. We're still doing that.
Never Been a Better Podcast. Oh, that's always a good bring up. Never Been a Better Podcast should be going up on Friday. We've got that recorded, and we'll be recording another one soon. But the one going up on Friday is Austin and Bacalar. You can join us on there. That is all up on the Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/Nextlander and check that out. You can give us some support there if you are able. Find a tier that is right for you. Patreon.com/Nextlander. We will be doing our patron Q&A next week. So keep an eye out for that next week, along with the Patron's Choice stream. But I would be remiss not to mention, of all the tiers there's one tier that gets their name read on this here show. And I will mention this before you read the names. You can put whatever name you want on there. And we do reserve the right to read or not read it. Alex Navarro, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, I'm going to read the one that made us put that warning on this particular episode, but I'm just going to say I'm not going to read all of that again. So just when we get there, you'll know what it is, but I'm not going to do that again, so maybe take a few characters out of it.
or we've reserved the right to editorialize the name a bit or truncate it.
Yes.
Yeah, but this time I will read it as is written because it's a Simpsons reference, and I'm not too good for that even in any circumstance. Our mysterious benefactors for this week are Sean Miller, RRE, Alpha Rhythm, Infelicitous Rips, Kelly F., Brian Lucier, Skywarp, John Hubbard, NXL Retirement Fund, Evan Cook, Mark Wilhelm, Jerry Lee, Ask Deirdre about her super gay keyboard, Gary Pechsky, Robert Fisher, Bunny Thing, Jad Rita, Statics, Brian Murphy, Randy Duax, Randy Alderson, Andrew Tiebkin, Alex Wu, It's Me JP, Edward Chick, Andrew Slosky, Steve Lynn, Matthew Herrig, David Campos, I'm Alon and I'm a stupid moron with an ugly face and a big butt and my butt smells and I like to kiss my own butt, and Tyler Treese.
Oh, bless you all.
That was not nearly as long as I thought it would be.
Still pretty long. It's not that I disagree with the sentiment. It's just that it's kind of long.
Look, you get your money's worth here over at Nextlander. Thanks to all our mysterious benefactors. And like I said, plenty of stuff going up there. Plenty of stuff over at the Patreon. Thanks for supporting us. Thanks for hanging out. I'm freezing. I'm cold. We gotta go get some heat.
Get out of there before
fucking degrees outside.
Get out of there before that channel strip starts shutting down again.
I know. I can hear it getting lower and lower as the temperature starts dropping in here. As the power supply is I don't know what you want me to do. I'm freezing. Thanks, Alex Navarro.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brad Shoemaker.
Thank you.
And we'll be back next week.